Chapter 880. Before sunrise, when the sky was at its darkest, the dragon overlord returned to Wu Ling Castle. His wild divine sense swept out in all directions. After a moment, he retracted his divine sense. After finding nothing, the dragon overlord's face darkened. His eyes locked onto the 6 Obum powerhouses in front of him. That girl has suffered heavy injuries. She cannot use the flesh transformation technique. I will give you 5 days. If you cannot find her, then don't come back. Yes, my lord. The 6 Obum powerhouses trembled in fear. Then, within the entire Great King City and its surrounding territories, all forces were mobilized. An unprecedented search was launched. With Wu Ling Castle as the center, lines of defense spread out. Whether it was in the sky or underground, everything was blocked off. But unfortunately, this massive search was doomed to fail from the start. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. After Qin Yu rescued Mo Yuan from the dungeon, he didn't go too far. After leaving the range of his senses, he directly drilled into a densely packed underground mine that had been excavated in the depths of the earth. Of course, if he wanted to hide here, he would need to withstand the first wave of the Dragon Overlord's personal investigation. Qin Yu held the unconscious Mo Yuan in his arms. The invisible space around him twisted, perfectly restraining their auras. Even someone as strong as the Dragon Overlord wouldn't be able to sense anything unless it carefully searched every inch of the area. Feeling the terrifying pressure of the Dragon Overlord vanish, Qin Yu let out a breath of relief. He placed Mo Yuan to the side and placed a finger between her eyebrows. After determining that her injuries were serious but not life-threatening, Qin Yu sat down cross-legged beside her. Although he didn't know what was happening outside, he didn't need to be a genius to know that the Dragon Overlord had fallen into a frenzy after losing its bait. It had likely activated its full strength to search for them. If so, then he would rest here for a period of time. Once Mo Yuan's injury stabilized, he would think of a way to leave Wu Ling Castle. With this thought in mind, Qin Yu closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Although the jade embryo egg in his hand was like a heaven-defying cheat, hard work was always the only way to strengthen oneself. This was something that Qin Yu never dared to forget ever since he stepped onto the great Tao of cultivation. Mo Yuan felt as if she had experienced an incomparably long dream. The dream was pitch black, without the least bit of light. It was like a huge, shapeless swamp, wrapping around her and pulling her into the depths bit by bit, burying her forever. Hesitation, helplessness, and fear gushed out from the bottom of her heart. Mo Yuan wanted to struggle, but she found that no matter how hard she tried, she could not get rid of this dark imprisonment. Just as she was gradually losing all hope, a vague voice came from the darkness above her head. At first, it was very vague, but it slowly became clear. "Wake up! Wake up!" And Mo Yuan suddenly became excited. Someone was calling her. Even though the voice was extremely unfamiliar, Mo Yuan was still filled with gratitude and closeness to it. Then, she discovered that the shackles of the surrounding darkness seemed to have weakened a little. Mo Yuan struggled with all her might. The binding of the darkness was getting weaker and weaker. After some time, she finally escaped. Who? Panting heavily, Mo Yuan weakly opened her eyes. She found that her dress was soaked in sweat again and was sticking to her body. Mo Yuan couldn't care less about her current embarrassing appearance. She smiled and whispered to Qin Yu, "Thank you." At first glance, she recognized that the man in front of her was the one who had magically appeared in the dungeon. Since he was still in front of her and didn't seem to be imprisoned, this meant that they had escaped. Qin Yu nodded. "How do you feel?" Mo Yuan said, "A bit bad. But since I didn't die, I should be able to recover after a period of time." She looked around. "Where are we?" Qin Yu said, "An underground mine." Mo Yuan was startled. She immediately said, "Hiding here is a good idea. The Opums shouldn't be able to find us." Qin Yu didn't mention that the Dragon Overlord had already taken action. So, you should rest and recover first. Once you've recovered, we will leave." Mo Yuan nodded. Just as she was about to say something, her complexion suddenly froze. She could hear some suppressed sounds coming from the darkness. At first, Mo Yuan didn't realize anything. But as her breathing became heavier and the woman's cries became louder and louder, she panicked and her pale face flushed red. I'm going to cultivate, she hurriedly closed her eyes. But the voices in the darkness continued to enter her ears. It was impossible for Mo Yuan to calm down. Instead, her breathing deepened and she didn't dare to move. Beads of sweat began to form on the tip of her nose. Qingyu frowned. She really was a little girl. When she faced the dragon overlord, she had a strong will to commit suicide, but now her mind was disturbed. Shaking his head, Qingyu squatted down and picked up a stone. He casually tossed it into the darkness. Ah! A pained cry rang out. Then there was the sound of panicked footsteps. Finally, the voices that stirred up the mind disappeared. After finishing this, Qingyu turned and took several steps back. He closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. Mo Yuan carefully opened her eyes. Seeing that Qingyu wasn't paying attention to her, she relaxed and felt a bit grateful. The scale of the Xian stone mine that Wu Ling Fort discovered was astonishing. After 3,000 years of mining, it had formed a complex underground system that was like a labyrinth. To this day, even Wu Ling Fort's Ophim didn't know how many human slaves there were in the underground mines. Every year, many died and they were constantly replenished. At the same time, those human slaves, who had been thrown into the mine and couldn't leave for the rest of their lives, were also producing the next generation. Although Qingyu only stayed in this area and didn't investigate the surrounding area, he could occasionally hear a few words. In addition to what he discovered when he used his divine sense to investigate, it was clear that in this massive, labyrinth-like mine, a deformed second-level slave system had gradually formed. Powerful slaves controlled more ordinary slaves to complete the mining tasks of Wuling Fort. They also used zinc ores as resources to exchange for necessary survival supplies from the surface. To the vast majority of human slaves, the underground mines were a living hell on Earth. But there were an extremely small number of them that could live an incomparably comfortable life. Of course, even if Qingyu knew all of this, he wouldn't care. Everyone had their own destiny. He couldn't even control his own life, so how could he take care of others? In the darkness, the sound of men and women panting once again sounded out. This caused Qingyu to reveal a helpless expression. Could it be that the place they chose just happened to be a place suitable for producing humans? Glancing at Mo Yuan, whose complexion was starting to change, Qingyu flicked his sleeves and an earthen yellow light appeared, wrapping around the two of them. After a while, they stopped in another quiet mine. But soon, Qingyu discovered that it wasn't that the place he chose was suitable for producing humans. Rather, it was that the human slaves in the mine, in the endless darkness, had lost the restrictions of morality and rules. They had become completely free to do as they pleased. As long as they wanted to, any place could become a place for them to make love. If it were just Qingyu alone, he could completely ignore him. But a woman like Mo Yuan clearly couldn't do this. Qingyu considered for a moment whether or not he should bring Mo Yuan away from the mine and open up a separate space. But he quickly suppressed this idea. It was too risky. Although they had already concealed themselves from the great dragon overlord's detection, who knew whether or not he would return. Hiding in the mine and mixing in with the many human slaves, using their aura to conceal themselves was the safest choice. Otherwise, if they were discovered, that would be a great joke. Mo Yuan seemed to sense Qinyu's dilemma. She suppressed her embarrassment and opened her eyes. Big brother Qin, I'm fine. Let's just leave it like this. Qingyu hesitated for a moment and then nodded, not saying anything. He knew that with every word he said, she would be more embarrassed. Whatever, it was only several days. Once Mo Yuan's injuries recovered a little, they would leave. Qingyu could certainly choose to use his strength to scare away the surrounding human slaves and obtain a quiet environment. But if he did this, they would be discovered. Although these human slaves should have an incomparable hatred for the opium above, the abnormal second-level slavery system made it so that Qin Yu wasn't willing to take this risk. Now, the best choice for him and Mo Yuan was to be transparent. This way, the risk of being exposed would be the lowest. But the facts proved that sometimes, the more you didn't want something to happen, the more likely it would happen. When Qin Yu opened his eyes once more, he could hear the sound of hurried footsteps approaching from afar. Listening to their breathing and the weight of their footsteps, he could determine that it was a woman. She was clearly panicking. Bang! The woman fell over, and he could hear her pained groans. Hee, Mountain is already dead. How about you follow me and continue to be a man above men in this mine? The man diabolically cackled. Tu Gang, if it weren't for Big Brother Mountain in the past, you would have already become a skeleton. Now you dare to treat me like this? Are you even human? Little sister-in-law, in this damned place where there is no daylight, once we enter, there is no way we can leave. What difference is there between being human and not being human? If little sister-in-law is happy, then scold me all you want. I don't care at all. The man laughed as he threw himself at her. Bang! Flames lit up and a loud explosion followed. Light illuminated the dark mine, and the man cried out in pain. You smelly whore, you smelly whore. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I will play you to death. Tu Gang howled and wiped the blood off his face. Then, he threw himself at the man like a madman. Pa! With a light sound, Tu Gang felt the strength in his body rapidly vanish. Who? This final thought raced through his mind before his consciousness fell into darkness. Pa! Qin Yu let go, allowing the corpse to fall to the ground. He looked at the trembling woman in front of him who had also been injured by the explosion. He suddenly said, Do you know Nku? The woman in front of him looked up. The explosion just now had left several wounds on her face, but one could still see that she was once a beautiful woman. No, it was more accurate to say that she was a girl. She wasn't too old, but her face was filled with the vicissitudes of life. At this time, as she heard Nku's name, she hurriedly said, Who are you? How do you know my big brother's name? Was he captured and brought here? Qin Yu thought to himself. The darkness of the mine was meaningless to him. When he first saw her, he felt a sense of familiarity. This was because this girl's appearance was 90% similar to Nku's. In particular, the expression on her face. It was as if they had been carved from the same mold. Although he knew he shouldn't do anything, he still did it. If he watched on helplessly as she was humiliated or even killed, he wouldn't be able to face Nku again. Now, he could only hope that what happened here wouldn't draw too much attention. I know your big brother. He isn't here, so don't ask too much. Let's leave this place first. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves, and a halo of yellow light wrapped around him and Mo Yuan. Then, they melted into the ground and vanished. Nku's little sister was called an Xin. After confirming Qin Yu's identity, she knew she had a chance to leave this place. Her mood surged, and she soon fell into a deep sleep. Qin Yu looked at the bloody wounds on her face. He turned and met Mo Yuan's bright eyes. I'm sorry. I owe her big brother a favor, so I couldn't just stand by and watch her die. Mo Yuan shook her head. You did the right thing. Moreover, you saved my life, so there's no need to apologize. Qin Yu nodded. He changed the topic. How are your injuries? They're much better. In another 3 days, I should be able to move around without any problems. Qin Yu's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He was well aware of Mo Yuan's injuries. For her to recover so quickly, there had to be a reason behind it. Everyone had their own secrets. Qin Yu didn't ask too much. He nodded and sat down. He took out some bottles and jars and began to mix them. After a moment of silence, Mo Yuan suddenly said, What are you doing? Qin Yu was startled. Although he had saved Mo Yuan, the two of them hadn't communicated much these past few days. I'm trying to mix some medicine. Are you going to treat the wounds on her face? Chapter 881. In the darkness, Qin Yu played with a thumb-sized smooth stone in his hand. This was the incomparably precious Xian stone of the world of opium. When Qin Yu first entered the mine, he discovered that there was a strange strength contained within the Exian stone that could resonate with the body of an ancient. But unfortunately, the strength contained within the Exian stone was far too weak. It was so weak that even if Chinyu absorbed 100,000 of them, there wouldn't be any obvious changes. Chinyu sighed inwardly. He flipped his hand and put away the Exian stone. He had a faint intuition that the strength contained within this stone was extremely important to him. He hoped that he would have a chance to find it somewhere else in the future. Ah! He heard a surprised cry in his ears. Chinyu opened his eyes and saw an Exian's pleasantly surprised expression. She traced her face with both hands. All of her wounds had already healed, and the scabs had fallen off to reveal her pink skin. There wasn't a single scar left behind. It's good, it's really good. Big brother Chin, thank you. Chinyu smiled. His complexion suddenly changed. He frowned as he looked at the other end of the mine. A group of human slaves was rapidly rushing towards him. There was the sound of hurried footsteps, mixed with cold and gloomy roars. They are here. If they dare to kill second brother too, none of them will be able to live. An Exian smile froze. Her body shivered and her face paled. Big brother Chin, they're looking for me. Chinyu furrowed his eyebrows. It seemed that the person he killed before had some status in the mine. He had actually found this place. He glanced at an Exian. Don't worry, it's fine. Chinyu stood up. He walked towards the direction of the footsteps. Big brother Chin. An Exian stood up, her hands clasped together. Mo Yuan looked at her and lightly said, If Big brother Chin says it's fine, then it's definitely fine. Just stay here. Chin had been able to break through the imprisonment of the great dragon overlord. Although Mo Yuan could sense that his aura wasn't particularly strong, she still believed that Chin was hiding his strength deeply. He was a true master. Puff, puff, muffled sounds rang out in the mine. Just as angry cries rose up, they quickly quieted down. Standing amongst the corpses, Chinyu frowned. He immediately made a decision. He turned and walked in front of an Exian. You should be able to find out who was chasing you, right? An Exian nodded in a daze. She could clearly smell the thick stench of blood coming from Chinyu's body, so thick that it was almost tangible. Were those people all dead? Very good. Take us to him. As Chinyu finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and swept up the two of them. Then, he used the power of the earth to rapidly pass through the mud and stones. The fact that he could be found here meant that the other party was not weak. If he continued to hide, it was only a matter of time before he was discovered. Rather than being hunted down again and again, it would be better to wipe them out all at once. That way, they would be able to make less noise. According to Anshin's guidance, 2 hours later, Chinyu appeared at the edge of a massive underground space. A long time ago, there should have been a large amount of Exian stone buried here. After it was mined, it was excavated and repaired to its current state. An ore of an unknown attribute was embedded in the stone wall, emitting a dim light that could barely illuminate the surroundings. Chinyu drew back his divine sense. He lifted a finger, and a yellow light surged from his fingertip, condensing into a knuckle-sized bead that floated in the air. Wait here. As he spoke, he stepped forwards. The mud and stones parted and closed again. An hour later, this massive underground space had been thoroughly pierced through by Chinyu. A middle-aged man knelt in front of him. His entire body was covered in scars, and his single blind eye was exposed. The pitch-black eye socket looked particularly fierce. But now, his body shivered and his face was full of fear. Just what was the background of this evil star? Why did he attack him? From now on, I have the final say here. Do you understand? The scarred man gulped and nodded. From now on, you are the leader. Chinyu lifted a hand. A drop of blood seeped out from his fingertip, and he slowly pointed it between the scarred man's eyebrows. The scarred man shivered like a sieve, but he didn't dare to move. He could clearly feel the icy cold aura coming from Chinyu. If he dared to resist in the slightest, he would immediately die a miserable death. Pa! The drop of blood touched the point between Chinyu's eyebrows and fused into his flesh and blood. Blood runes rapidly appeared, weaving together into a ghostly face that immediately vanished. From now on, your life is no longer your own. With just a thought, I can make you suffer a fate worse than death. As the Scar Man saw Mo Yuan and Anshin rise up from the ground, he was stunned. He lowered his head and gnashed his teeth. You damned bastard, you bastard too, gang. It's fine if you want to die, but you even dragged me down with you. Luckily you're dead. Otherwise I swear I would have captured you and made you taste a fate worse than death. Qin Yu was finally able to cultivate in peace. But, not long after he entered this state, he was interrupted by a knock on the door. He frowned and opened his eyes. Sensing that it was an Xian outside, he calmly opened the door. What is it? An Xian had an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, big brother Qin. I didn't mean to disturb your cultivation, but there is something I should tell you. Qin Yu stepped aside. Come in. After an Xian entered, she didn't delay. She went straight to the point. Big brother Qin, I married someone of mine. He told me that he once obtained a treasure. As long as he took it out, everyone in the mine would go crazy. So, he hid it in a hidden chamber. She glanced at Qin Yu. Big brother Qin saved me, but I have no way to repay you. I can only provide this information. Although my husband isn't too strong, he has always been a cautious person. Since he believes it to be a treasure, perhaps it will be useful to big brother Qin. She lifted a hand and pulled off a necklace from her neck. This pendant is made from the fragments that fall off during mining. Big brother Qin could take a look. She didn't stay for long. After putting down the necklace, she stood up and bid her farewells. Qin Yu closed the door. He looked back at the necklace, his face expressionless. The repayment an Xian spoke of should have come from her heart. But that didn't mean she didn't want to borrow his hand to take revenge for her husband. Qin Yu didn't like this feeling of being used. But after thinking about it, he took the necklace. It was warm to the touch, and he could faintly smell the fragrance of a woman. But Qin Yu didn't care about this. His eyes widened as he stared at the small, fingernail-sized gray stone that hung from the necklace as a pendant. This is... Qin Yu flipped his hand and took out the Xian stone. After sensing it, he could confirm that the strange energy contained within the Xian stone came from the same source as the energy in this gray stone. But what was different was that the energy contained within the gray stone, whether it was quantity or quality, far surpassed the energy contained within the Xian stone. For example, if one refined 100,000 Xian stones, extracted their strength, fused them together, compressed them, and then underwent a qualitative change, what one obtained would be the energy within the gray stone. Moreover, it would only be a small portion. In other words, the strange energy contained within this small gray stone in Qin Yu's hand was equal to hundreds of thousands of Xian stones. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling thoughts. Within his chest, his two hearts began to vigorously beat. He could clearly feel his mortal body's desire for this stone. Even with Qin Yu's formidable will, he nearly couldn't control his mind and swallowed the stone. Just what was this thing? No matter what, the reaction of the ancient's body wasn't a bad thing, no matter how he looked at it. Pa! Qin Yu exerted strength in his palm. The stone on the necklace directly shattered and turned into powder. As it touched the flesh of Qin Yu's palm, it fused into him. In the next moment, Qin Yu subconsciously groaned from the depths of his throat. A blazing strength swept through his entire body. Crackle! This was the sound of his flesh and bones exploding. Qin Yu could feel them emitting excited cheers. Every inch of his flesh and blood, every piece of bone, was undergoing an inconceivable change at this moment. His mind was completely immersed in this. After an unknown period of time, Qin Yu suddenly regained his composure. He smelled a foul stench. When he opened his eyes, he saw that his entire body was wrapped in a thick layer of black grease. This pungent smell was coming from this. His body's impurities, not just that, but there were also the countless injuries that Qin Yu had sustained in his body. Now, because he had absorbed this stone, they had all been expelled from his body. Even with the formidable body of an ancient, he was helpless against these impurities. This stone was a treasure, an absolute treasure. With a thought, flames appeared out of thin air, instantly incinerating all of the grease. Qin Yu's black robes were restored to their original state. He clenched his fists, feeling the powerful strength rushing through his flesh and blood. At this time, there was only one thought in his mind: find a remaining stone. He had to find it. Even if he was really being used by an Exian, he would make this use of him even more violent. He knocked on an Exian's door and said, "Take me to your husband's chamber." An Exian nodded. 6 hours later, Qin Yu appeared in another underground space with a massive number of buildings. However, it was clear that a great battle had occurred here not too long ago. All he could see were ruins and broken walls. Over there, an Exian lifted a hand. Qin Yu pulled on her, and the two of them howled forwards. Soon, someone discovered an Exian. A human slave with a wrinkled face wrapped in rags cried out in excitement. "An Exian! It's an Exian! You actually dare to come back!" He shot up into the skies, ignoring Qin Yu as he reached out to grab her. "Humph!" Qin Yu coldly coughed. With a loud bang, the human slave's arm was broken off. He tumbled into the distance and fell to the ground, motionless. An Exian clenched her teeth. "He used to be my husband's subordinate." She paused for a moment and said, "Big brother Qin, I'm sorry. I really did think that you could take revenge for my husband. He was a good person. If it weren't for his protection, I would have already died." Qin Yu lightly said, "It doesn't matter. It's fine as long as we can find what we need." An Exian relaxed. She confidently said, "Big brother Qin, don't worry. The location of the chamber is extremely hidden. They absolutely won't be able to find it." And at this time, Qin Yu's killing had already aroused their attention. Whoosh, 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 with the sound of breaking air, figure after figure surrounded Qin Yu, their eyes blazing hot and cruel. "An Exian, it's great that you dare to come back. Hurry up and open the chamber. Otherwise, I guarantee you that you'll regret being born so beautiful. Tell me the location of the chamber, and I'll let you go." Qin Yu pulled an Exian behind him. His eyes swept over these people, and he suddenly shouted, "Scram!" His voice was like a thunderclap exploding in the ground. Rumble, 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 rumble endlessly. The faces of the people surrounding Qin Yu instantly paled. Fear filled the depths of their eyes. They had never seen Qin Yu before, but that didn't stop them from feeling just how strong he was. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, once they attacked, they would suffer heavy casualties. In the world of the mind, the most worthless thing was human life. But those were other people's lives. They still cherished their own lives. Should they leave like this? But if they didn't leave, it was likely they would die here. Everyone glanced at each other and slowly drew back. At this time, most of them had the same idea. This person was tyrannical and couldn't be defeated. They might as well retreat for now. Once they opened the chamber and saw what was inside, they would make a decision. If there really was a heaven-shattering amount of wealth, this person absolutely wouldn't be able to leave. At that time, it wouldn't be too late to take action. An Exian was secretly anxious, but she couldn't speak at this time. She could only respect Qin Yu's decision. But she didn't know that from the very start, Qin Yu had already decided not to let anyone here go. News of his appearance here could not be leaked out, and in this world, the only ones that could keep secrets were the dead. As for giving these people time to consider, that was because Qin Yu also needed time to seal up this place and turn it into a hell for these people. Bang! As everyone was retreating, Qin Yu attacked without warning. He lifted a hand and pressed forwards. 5-colored divine light erupted. 5-element samsara. With miserable screams, a massive number of slaves were swallowed up by the 5-color vortex. With loud, rumbling sounds, they were twisted into powder. "Run! This person is terrifying. Run away!" Whoosh, whoosh. Figures crazily fled in all directions. But soon, despair filled their faces. Space had already been isolated. It was like an invisible prison. All of them were trapped inside, unable to escape. "He wants to kill us all. This madman. Fight. Otherwise, no one will live. Kill." For the slaves that mingled in the mind world to rise above others, besides strength, they also didn't lack ruthlessness and ruthlessness. After determining that there was no way to escape, they all revealed their fangs and lunged towards Qin Yu. Unfortunately, even if they didn't fear death, In front of Qin Yu, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. He lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. Azure point. As this finger appeared, it instantly pierced through the entire battlefield. Let alone being struck head-on, just being grazed by it would cause one's body to be torn apart. The slaves completely collapsed. A moment later, the slaughter ended. Qin Yu stood high in the air, surrounded by corpses and rivers of blood. Chapter 882. Anexion's husband was definitely a smart person. He placed the entrance to the chamber under the stepping stone at the main entrance. Every day, countless people walked past it, but no one would look at it for too long. But unfortunately, even a smart person needed to have enough strength to protect themselves. Otherwise, no matter how good one was at grasping the hearts of others, a single slash from their saber could cut off their head. Anexion stepped on the stepping stone several dozen times according to the amount of strength she used. Then, with a light cracking sound, the stone floor split open, revealing stone steps that led underground. Big Brother Qin, the chamber is here. I won't go in. I'll wait here for you to come back. She was quite tactful. Qin Yu nodded. Without hesitation, he said, "Okay." His figure flickered. He stepped onto the stone steps and vanished from sight. Perhaps to avoid being discovered, the chamber was buried very deep. It took Qin Yu a long time to reach the end. Qin Yu frowned. He lifted a hand and pressed forward. The air instantly froze. A few cold stars were locked in midair. The one closest to his face was less than 10 feet away. Qin Yu's eyes darkened. He thought for a moment and suppressed the chill in his heart. When an Exion saw him attack, she could imagine just how strong he was. She should be aware that there were hidden mechanisms here that couldn't harm him at all. If so, then it seemed that she didn't know that there were fatal dangers hidden in this chamber. Humph. It seemed that the husband that an Exion said was good to her wasn't the same as what he said. But none of this was important. Qin Yu wasn't in the mood to care about it. He flicked his sleeves and threw away the black arrows that were imprisoned. Then, he stepped into the chamber. Sweeping his eyes around, Qin Yu knew why an Exion's husband had been killed. As a slave in the mines, he had actually accumulated so much wealth. As a man who had already looted 2 large warehouses, Qin Yu's eyesight wasn't bad. He could roughly judge the value with a single glance. But he didn't care about these tempting treasures. A dark golden light surged in his eyes as he slowly swept his eyes around the chamber. After several breaths of time, Qin Yu revealed a happy expression. His figure flickered and he arrived in front of frame. He lifted a hand and pressed down. The gray metal frame instantly turned crimson red. Then it turned into a pile of mud and softly slid down, revealing the stone wall behind. At first glance, the stone wall seemed ordinary and unremarkable. In fact, when Zhang Xian scanned it with his spiritual sense, he was unable to detect anything amiss. But now, in Qin Yu's eyes, there was a very interesting little secret hidden within. After looking carefully for a moment, Qin Yu lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. As his finger touched the stone wall, he drew it back. Then he pointed his second finger, a third finger, a fourth finger. Qin Yu's fingers moved like the wind. Within a foot-wide area, he pointed out at least several hundred times, covering nearly every inch of the area. Ka-cha! Ka-cha! A sound came from within the stone wall. Qin Yu drew back his hand, and a square stone slowly rose up from the stone wall. If one looked carefully, they would discover that this stone was actually an exquisitely cut and perfectly carved stone box. He opened the box, and a fist-sized gray stone wrapped in exquisite red velvet appeared in front of him. Found it. There was a trace of hesitation in his eyes, but he soon made a decision. He lifted his hand and grasped the stone in his palm. "I'll go into seclusion for a while. You wait outside." With that, the space within the chamber distorted, transforming into an invisible screen that completely separated it from the outside world. Pa! The stone in his palm shattered, and the powder fused into his flesh and blood. Qin Yu's eyes widened, and he roared out loud. If it could be said that the small piece of stone on Anshin's necklace had caused Qin Yu to feel a blazing strength sweep through his body. But at this moment, it was like he was immersed in crimson magma, ready to combust at any moment. Roar! Chinyu reared back his head and roared. His body changed uncontrollably. His flesh and bones exploded as they rapidly grew and expanded. At this moment, he transformed into the incarnation of an ancient and blew apart the chamber. The earth rumbled and trembled. Thump! Thump! The sound of his heartbeat echoed out from his chest, constantly echoing in the underground space. It gave off a fierce feeling as if one were facing a storm of thunder. Strengthening, strengthening, crazily strengthening. At this moment, Qin Yu's mortal body was becoming increasingly powerful at a mind-boggling speed. With every breath he took, the power contained in his body was increasing at a crazy rate. In his ears, he could hear the roars of the ancient that had crossed through space and time to arrive. This voice was ancient and distant, carrying with it the aura of endless years. It was like praise and also like a blessing. His mind was flooded by the roars of the ancient. Suddenly, Qin didn't feel any pain at all. He closed his eyes, his consciousness falling into a half-awake state. At this moment, if there were anyone else in the chamber, they would be able to see that ancient runes had appeared on the surface of his body. In the ancient past, there was a favored child of the heavens and earth. His name was Ancient. Ancient was born powerful, possessing the might to uproot mountains and split apart the earth. Adult Ancient had bodies that were 10,000 feet tall, and those with extraordinary talent could even reach 100,000 feet. Every movement they made could summon a dreadful strength that swept through the heavens, overwhelming and unrivaled. Among them, as long as an adult was over 100,000 feet tall, ancient runes would appear on the surface of their body at birth. In a sense, the Obum race was the same as the ancient race. They both had a bloodline cultivation system. They were born with a knowledge of cultivation methods. As long as they constantly strengthened themselves and stimulated their bloodline, awakening the strength contained within, they could constantly grow stronger. And at this time, these ancient runes were appearing on the surface of Qin Yu's body. In the long river of history, the ancient race once had the legends of defying the heavens and changing their fate. When the ancient race experienced a great lucky chance, a great stroke of good fortune, it was possible for them to change their own potential. The fine and exquisite ancient patterns didn't have the slightest bit of the ruthlessness and roughness displayed by the ancient race. It was like the engraving of the heaven and earth itself, exuding mysteriousness and profoundness. Every curve and intersection of the lines gave off a flawless feeling. It was like it should have been like this since time immemorial. Even if the heavens collapsed and the earth collapsed, nothing would change. They grew and spread. On the top of his head, on his chest, on his limbs, on his hands and feet. As they grew, they seemed scattered and scattered. But once they spread to a certain range, they would inevitably come into contact. The chest, limbs, and feet were the first to fuse together. They were like parts of a giant jigsaw puzzle, perfect to the point of being flawless. The ancient runes on his head had also grown for 100,000 feet. Only the neck was still blank. It was like a bridge connecting the head to the body, and, similarly, connecting the heavens and earth. Bang, 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 space shook. 3 towering mountain phantoms appeared above Qin Yu's head. The underground space crazily expanded outwards once more. Beneath the invisible sweeping strength, the incomparably hard stone was now as fragile as a bubble, unable to stop it at all. And at this time, the ancient race's 3 Saint Mountains arrived, as if they had been given enough strength, and also as if they had obtained the key to a great door. As the ancient race's 3 Saint Mountains arrived, the barrier between Qin Yu's head and body was finally broken. Pa! The first ancient rune began to grow upward from his body, extending into his neck. Then a second, a third. In the blink of an eye, his entire neck was covered with dense ancient runes. When the last one grew out, there was no longer a gap between his head and body. The ancient runes were complete. Bang! An invisible aura was released from Qin Yu's body. The surrounding space twisted. This wasn't the release of strength, but the aura of his flesh and blood. It was like the unconscious breathing of others. His half-asleep and half-awake consciousness suddenly awakened. The roars of the ancients that crossed through space and time became clear to him. They were cheering and giving their blessings. After countless years of cheering, another king had finally appeared in the withered ancient race. Although they were already dead, their undying wills were sincerely wishing for the new king, wishing that the new king would become stronger and stronger, and that the entire ancient race would return to the world once more. A memory hidden in the ancient race's bloodline was activated after the ancient rune was completed. It fused into Qin Yu's mind, and he learned of the changes that occurred to his body. The indestructible body of the ancient race was known as the strongest body of the ancient race. Undying and indestructible, its battle prowess was torrential. Even if its body were to be destroyed, as long as there was a piece of flesh and bone left, it could be reborn from the passage of time. At the same time, this was the body of a king of the ancient race. On the other hand, once the kings of the ancient races successfully reached adulthood, their bodies would be able to break through the limit of 100,000 feet and possess monstrous might, and their strength would be comparable to deity realm powerhouses. Pluck the stars with a raise of the hand, and destroy the world with a stomp of the foot. This was the king of the ancient race. Undying body of the ancient race. King of the ancient race, Qin Yu gripped his fists. He could feel a terrifying strength rampaging through his flesh and blood, his bones. They were hidden, but once they erupted, they could cause the world to tremble and wail. This was a strength that Qin Yu had never felt before. No, that wasn't right. This wasn't all of his harvests. Qin Yu suddenly realized something. He took a deep breath and suppressed the surging emotions in his chest. Then, he closed his eyes and focused his senses. A suppressive feeling appeared in his mind. This wasn't some unknown strength, but a feeling of being bound. It was like he was living in the world, but his body was wrapped up in a thick membrane that prevented him from truly feeling the world. This sort of feeling made it hard for Qin Yu to breathe. He couldn't wait to tear apart the barriers around him and truly embrace the world. And more importantly, Qin Yu had a clear intuition that if he were to attack, he could easily accomplish this. But at this time, Qin Yu hesitated. Although he didn't know what this membrane he was sensing was, there shouldn't be any harm in breaking it. But Qin Yu still felt that he wasn't prepared. If he were to break apart this membrane in such a hurry, he might obtain some benefits now, but in the long run he would lose even more. After struggling with this thought for a moment, Qin Yu restrained his thoughts. He suppressed the strong beating in his chest and suppressed the dragon-like strength in his body. He had to wait a little longer. He had to figure out just what this membrane he was sensing was before making his next decision. Laying out a deep breath, Qin Yu opened his eyes. With a thought, the ancient runes vanished and his body returned to normal. He swept his eyes over the scattered treasures around him. Then he stepped forwards and invisible ripples swept out, annihilating everything. Chapter 883. He had to leave the mine as soon as possible. Qin Yu wasn't sure whether or not he had been discovered by the outside world when he condensed the ancient runes. After all, with his current boundary, it was impossible for him to guess just how great the might of a dragon overlord was. Qin Yu drilled out from the ground and found Anshin, who had retreated far away. Without hesitation, he brought her away as fast as he could. When he saw Mo Yuan again, Qin Yu said, "We're leaving." Although she hadn't fully recovered from her injuries, and Mo Yuan didn't question his decision. "Okay." Qin Yu turned around. "Anshin, if we leave now, there might be some dangers. You stay here for now. I guarantee that once we resolve the matters outside, I will definitely bring you away and reunite with your brother and sister." Anshin respectfully bowed. "I believe in my lord." She truly believed him. With Qin Yu's cultivation, there was no need for him to lie to her. To put it more cruelly, Even if Qin Yu obtained the treasures in the chamber and killed her to keep it a secret, who would know? After instructing the scarred man, Wang Yu, to protect Anshin while he was away, Qin Yu brought Mo Yuan out of the mine. He wasn't worried that Wang Yu would play any tricks. After absorbing the slave blood, he had become an ancient race blood slave. Unless an existence strong enough to sever the ancient's contract took action, a single thought could place him in a life or death situation. Little fragrant mountain. The Chaos longship floated in the air. The damage on its surface had mostly been repaired. Now, a halo of light surged on its surface, emitting a formidable pressure. Across from it, the bat-winged dragon was breathing heavily. Its crimson eyes glared at it, filled with hatred and brutality. On its back, the newly grown wings were slightly smaller than the other. It had no choice but to expend energy to maintain its stability. The dragon overlord's small body stood atop the bat-winged dragon's body. But his current aura was like a divine mountain that supported the heavens, as if he were the center of the heavens and earth. He naturally attracted everyone's attention. Mo Ming, have you thought it over? I will give you one last chance. Walk out of the Chaos longship, and we will fight to the death. Otherwise, I will turn your daughter into a specimen and personally deliver it to you. The dragon overlord's voice was low and deep. His words were cold and cruel, causing a chill to rise from the depths of one's heart and their blood to nearly freeze. You should know that my specimen-making skills are quite good. After all, as far as I know, you still have those gifts from the past. Pa! In the Chaos longboat, the crystal cup in Mo Ming's hand shattered. Water dripped down from his fingertips and smashed onto the ground. An invisible pressure filled the air, almost freezing it. The surrounding bright light guards all flushed red. It looked like if Mo Ming gave the order, they would not hesitate to fight with their lives on the line. To all the bright light guards, what happened back then was a lifetime of humiliation. But today, for the first time, they found out that the one who had personally committed the evil deed, the one who had branded the light guards with shame, was actually the Dragon Lord. Calm down, Mo Ming said indifferently. His face was as cold as stone, and it was impossible to detect any fluctuations in his emotions. Great Dragon Lord, you seem to be intentionally provoking me. Let me guess what the reason is. You haven't captured Mo Yuan at all. Shua. The light guards raised their heads in unison. Their eyes were wide open, revealing pleasant surprise. However, this did not include Shaolin, who had already escaped back. He felt that the expression on his face was definitely very stiff, but he did not dare to let anyone notice. He could only try his best to pretend to be excited. But at this time, he was crazily roaring in his heart. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Shaolin had personally experienced the situation back then. With Mo Yuan's strength, it was impossible for her to escape. The great Dragon Lord laughed, his cold voice clearly entering everyone's ears. Mo Ming, you are still so cold and heartless, just like when you abandoned your comrades in the past and escaped back by yourself. Now, you've decided to abandon your daughter? What a pity. She is a very beautiful human. Even in the eyes of our race, she is very tempting. Since you've abandoned her, I, the great Dragon Lord Duo Ligay, promise you that you will soon receive a gift from me. It will definitely be a great surprise, one that will leave an even deeper impression on you. The bat-winged dragon roared towards the heavens, spitting out a blazing dragon breath. It flapped its wings and soared into the skies, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Leader, if what he said is true, a bright light guard nervously said. Mo Ming lifted his hand. The one who understands a person the most is always their opponent. So, I can confirm that Mo Yuan has not been captured, otherwise the great Dragon Lord would not have left. He would have personally killed Mo Yuan in front of me, giving me the heaviest blow. Since that's the case, let's immediately send someone to find Mo Yuan and bring her back. Yes, since the great Dragon Lord knows of Mo Yuan's identity, he will definitely frantically search for her. We must be quick. Leader, let me go. I will do my best to bring Mo Yuan back safe and sound. Xiao Lin took a deep breath, suppressing the panic in his heart. He knew what the truth was, so Mo Yuan could not return. Otherwise, the lie would collapse on itself, and only death awaited him. The bright light guard did not allow any betrayal. Moreover, it was his vile actions. With a plop, Xiao Lin knelt on the ground. Leader, something happened to Mo Yuan when she was with me. I couldn't protect her. Please give me a chance to redeem myself. I swear, even if I die, I will bring Mo Yuan back. His performance caused the gazes of the surrounding people to ease slightly. Mo Ming was silent for a moment, then said, "Okay, I promise you." He raised his hand and pointed. "Uncle Ma, accompany Xiao Lin. You must be careful." "Yes, leader." Another bright light guard bowed. Xiao Lin's heart sank, but he didn't dare to show it. After bowing together with Uncle Ma, he turned and quickly left. Mo Yuan must die. She must not return. But before that, he had to get rid of Uncle Ma. This person was leader Mo Ming's retainer. He had been loyal for more than 1,000 years and couldn't be bribed. At this moment, no one noticed that deep in Xiao Lin's eyes, there was a murderous intent that had almost solidified. After all, the bright light guards would never have thought that Xiao Lin, who had always performed outstandingly and had a deep relationship with Mo Yuan, had long since stepped onto a path of no return. After leaving the primal chaos longboat, Xiao Lin and Uncle Ma hurried on their way. Finally, 2 days later, they avoided the many obums and arrived at Grand Imperial City. They didn't know where Mo Yuan was, but Grand Imperial City was the place with the most information, so it was naturally their first choice. "Uncle Ma, drink some wine. This is from my father's collection before we left. I originally wanted to give it to Lord Leader, but now." Xiao Lin laughed bitterly and placed the wineskin in his hand. After Uncle Ma took off the bright light armor, the face of a middle-aged man was revealed. His expression was calm and unmoving, and there was a bit of power between his brows. His eyes swept over the wineskin, and he shook his head. It's best not to drink during a mission, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. Xiao Lin's complexion changed slightly. He forced a smile and said, "It's just a little wine. For Uncle Ma, it's nothing, all right." Uncle Ma waved his hand and interrupted him. "I've already left contact signals in some places. Now, we'll split up and see if there's a response from the Mississippi, okay?" Xiao Lin nodded. Watching Uncle Ma leave, the veins on the palm that gripped the wineskin bulged. As expected, he had already been suspected. Uncle Ma, this old fellow, had always been a cautious person. He definitely wouldn't give him a chance. He couldn't wait any longer. If he really found Mo Yuan, then his matter would be exposed in broad daylight, and there would be no turning back. "You forced me to do this. You forced me to do this." Clenching his teeth, Xiao Lin turned and left. Uncle Ma was an old man who had joined the Bright Light Guard at the same time as Mo Ming. He was definitely an experienced veteran who had fought countless battles with the Opums over the years. His concealment skills had long been honed to the point of perfection. Now, he used the flesh transformation spell and transformed into a low-level Opum, with some white fur and a bit of aristocratic bloodline. He sat on a seat and gulped down the food. The food on the table was delicious in the eyes of the Opum, but it was hard for humans to swallow. However, at this moment, Uncle Ma's performance was perfect, be it in terms of expression or behavior. He even acted like a low-level Opum who only had a bit of aristocratic bloodline. He had an inferiority complex, but he was extremely sensitive and pretended to be arrogant. In the hotel, the Opums at the surrounding tables occasionally swept their gazes over. Most of them revealed looks of disdain. They wondered where this country bumpkin came from. He had saved up a few months or even a year's worth of income to be able to eat and drink here, yet he had to act like he had a powerful background. It was extremely laughable. After a while, the hotel's Opum could not help but go over to remind Uncle Ma to be quiet when he ate so as not to disturb the surrounding guests. Uncle Ma's face turned red, but he did not dare to cause trouble. He could only forcefully endure his aggrieved expression, causing the surrounding guests to burst into laughter. However, soon, no one had the time to look at an ugly member of the same race. The Opums began to discuss softly. Uncle Ma ate much slower and pricked up his ears to eavesdrop. He did not try to hide it all, but the more he did so, the more he fit the image of a low-level Opum who used up all his savings to eat a big meal and then brought a bunch of topics to talk about back to his own place to chat with the sea god. Suddenly, Uncle Ma furrowed his eyebrows. He rubbed his stomach as if he was already very full. He looked at the messy cups and bowls on the table with a slightly reluctant look in his eyes. Bill, after saying that, he threw down his old money pouch, stood up, and walked out. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Wait a moment, I haven't calculated it clearly yet, don't. Before the shout from behind faded away, Uncle Ma stomped heavily on the ground, and with a loud rumble, the ground collapsed. His entire body turned into a shadow, and he whizzed out. Humph! There was a cold snort. An Opum appeared out of thin air, blocking his path. Your sense of smell is quite sharp. Is this the old man who punishes the heavens? But since you've come to the royal capital today, don't think about leaving. His front hooves came crashing down. Bang! Uncle Ma flew backwards. Blood-red light surged as he flew backwards. He dispelled the transformation technique and revealed his human true form. Human. The Opums in the hotel screamed out loud and frantically fled. During this period of time, because of what happened in Little Fragrant Mountain, the Opums in the royal capital felt an indescribable sense of awe and fear towards the human cultivators on the other side of the mountain. Uncle Ma lifted his hand and grabbed an Opum, directly twisting his neck. A bloodthirsty look appeared on his calm face. Since I was discovered, I never thought of leaving here alive. But before I die, I will drag a few of you down with me. The Opum that attacked was enraged. You are courting death. Bang, bang. 2 tyrannical auras erupted. The hidden Opum powerhouses attacked, joining forces to surround and kill Uncle Ma. Moments later, the entire street was destroyed. Uncle Ma fell to the ground, his body nearly collapsing before he died. Across from him, the 3 Opum powerhouses paled, fear in their eyes. This madman. In a 3-on-1 situation, they had the absolute advantage in strength, but they had nearly been dragged down with him several times. Damned human! With a roar, an Opum powerhouse waved his front hooves and sent Uncle Ma's head soaring into the skies. Uncle Ma, Mo Yuan cried out in sorrow. Qin Yu covered her mouth and closed the window. Chapter 884. Mo Yuan fell into an inextricable pain. She guessed that Uncle Ma's appearance in Royal King City was related to her disappearance. Qin Yu didn't know how to comfort her. Moreover, words were powerless when it came to matters of life and death. She could only rely on herself. To Qin Yu's surprise, Mo Yuan quickly regained her composure, or perhaps she suppressed all the pain in her heart. Looking at Qin Yu, her first words were, Uncle Ma must have been tricked. Qin Yu asked how she knew, and Mo Yuan said with certainty, My father once said that Uncle Ma's skill in disguise is among the best in the firmament of punishment. Unless he's betrayed, nothing will happen to him. But the Opums clearly knew that he would appear here and set up an inescapable net in advance. Otherwise, with Uncle Ma's strength, even if he was discovered, he might have been able to escape. Qin Yu thought for a moment and said, What do you plan to do? And Mo Yuan said, I suspect that there is a traitor in firmament punishment. If this is the case, I must find this person. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. You have a suspect? And Mo Yuan clenched her teeth. Big brother Qin, you should have seen him. If Uncle Ma really came to Royal King City to find me, he definitely wouldn't want me to return alive. It didn't take much effort for Mo Yuan to find some messy marks left in Royal King City. She used the internal communication method of the bright light guard to respond. 2 days later, Mo Yuan and Qin Yu hid nearby and watched helplessly as the Opum they had hired to enter the rendezvous point was stabbed to death by spears that shot at him from all directions. His blood splashed far away. Something had happened. Soon, The Obums, who had set up an ambush, realized that they had killed the wrong person. Angry roars came from their mouths. Chinyu glanced at Mo Yuan. You stay here. I'll follow. This was the agreement between the two. Mo Yuan nodded and didn't say anything. Chinyu left and quietly followed the group of Obums. Finally, he arrived at the edge of Royal King City, where there was a heavily guarded courtyard. After sneaking in, Chinyu saw Shaolin surrounded by a group of Obums. Shaolin had an extremely ugly expression on his face. After taking a deep look, Chinyu turned and left. That's impossible. Mo Yuan must be there. You must have exposed a flaw and been discovered by her in advance. Shaolin growled in a low voice. He could not hide the panic on his face. Mo Yuan didn't die. She actually didn't die. Although Shaolin had pushed all the blame to the Obums in front of him, he had a thought in his heart. Could it be that she knew about Uncle Ma's death? If that was the case, she could have just left. Why did she have to use the secret code and arrange to meet today? Shaolin's body suddenly froze, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He suddenly thought of a possibility. This was Mo Yuan's test. She wanted to find out who exactly betrayed Uncle Ma and caused his death in Great King City. After all, based on Mo Yuan's understanding of Uncle Ma, it wasn't normal for something to happen to him here. In other words, it was very likely that Mo Yuan had followed these damned Obums and found his location. Quick, seal this place immediately. She might be here. Shaolin jumped up and shouted. In next to no time, the entire area was under martial law. Layers upon layers of blockades were searched, but in the end, they didn't find anything. This made the Obums even more dissatisfied, and they looked at Shaolin with cold eyes. I've been exposed. I've definitely been exposed. If Mo Yuan knows I'm here, she will definitely kill me. She definitely will. Shaolin's face was deathly pale, and his body trembled incessantly. Suddenly, a voice sounded. You're saying that after that girl finds you, she will find a way to kill you with her own hands? Shaolin suddenly raised his head and looked at Sophia, who had appeared out of nowhere. He knelt on the ground with a plop. City Lord, you promised me that you would protect my life. Hurry up and send me away from here. Mo Yuan will come. She will definitely come. Sophia narrowed her eyes. Very good. Then you could be a chess piece and lure her here. No, Shaolin screamed. I can't see her. The blood oath of the punishment firmament. City Lord, you know very well that if I can't deceive myself, I will die a miserable death. You promised me that as long as I submitted, you would guarantee my safety. You promised. Sophia lightly said, I did indeed promise you, but that was under the premise that you could infiltrate the punishment firmament and be of great value to us. Now, if I don't kill Mo Yuan, once she returns, you won't have any value at all. Trash in the eyes of the Obums. Your only use is to become food. So, do you choose to die now, or do you want to take a risk? You? Shaolin's eyes widened, anger and shock on his face. Seeing his attitude soften, Sophia softened her tone. As long as I can kill Mo Yuan, you'll be a very useful chess piece. I won't give you up so easily. Don't worry, the Obums will lay down an inescapable net. As long as Mo Yuan appears, there will be no chance for her to attack. Shaolin clenched his teeth. Fine, I agree. It's him. It really is him. Mo Yuan's body trembled. It took a long time for her to calm down. She looked at Chinyu and said, Big brother Chin, I must personally kill him and bring his head back to offer it to Uncle Ma's soul in heaven. Chinyu frowned. Forgive me for being blunt, but this isn't a good choice. If something happens to you, everything that happened before will be meaningless. Perhaps you can return to the Chaos Longboat first and tell your father about this, so he can deal with Shaolin. No. Mo Yuan's voice was firm. Shaolin has betrayed the Bright Guard, and he knows a great deal of information. Once he confirms that I have returned to the Chaos Longboat, the Obums will immediately transfer him away, and I will forever lose the chance to kill him. There is one more thing. This is an internal secret of the Bright Guard. When all of us joined, we had to make a blood oath never to betray them. Once we violate this oath, we will immediately suffer a backlash unless we completely deceive our hearts and cause a deviation in our understanding of ourselves. Shaolin has already deceived his heart, but as long as he faces me, he will have nowhere to run. He will inevitably die a miserable death from the backlash of the blood oath. Big Brother Qin, as long as I show myself, I will be able to kill him. It won't take too much time, and there won't be too much risk. Please help me. As long as I kill Shaolin, I will immediately leave the royal capital and never cause any more trouble for you. He looked at Mo Yuan and saw the determination in her eyes. He rubbed his temples and took a deep breath. All right, but you must listen to my orders. If anything goes wrong, we will immediately leave. In a heavily guarded courtyard, Shaolin sat at a stone table. Even though he was in a situation where he could die at any moment, he was actually calm. He quietly drank. Besides his pale face, there were no other visible fluctuations in his mood. 3 days passed, and Mo Yuan didn't appear. But as time passed, the pressure in Shaolin's heart became increasingly heavy. He knew that Mo Yuan was watching him from the shadows. The time for her to attack was approaching. As Shaolin breathed in, he could clearly feel the cool air of the outside world enter his body through his nose. As it flowed into his lungs, it brought with it a faint, icy feeling. Suddenly, the hand holding the wine cup froze in place. A suffocating feeling surged out from the depths of his heart. Terrifying blood marks appeared on Shaolin's face. Then they split open and blood gushed out. His flesh and blood rapidly decayed. Blood oath backlash. Shaolin fiercely turned around. He saw Mo Yuan quietly watching him from behind a tree. His lips twitched, causing large chunks of flesh to fall off. Then he shouted with all his strength, "She's here." He smashed the wine jar on the table. Shaolin scooped up some unknown black mucus that flowed out and crazily smeared it all over his body. But soon, he froze in place. Not only did the black mucus not stop the backlash of the blood oath, but it actually caused his body to decay even faster. Large chunks of flesh fell off, revealing white bones and organs. But now, they had already softened and were constantly dripping with stinky blood. "Save me. City Lord, save me." Qin Yu, who was hiding beneath Mo Yuan's feet, paled as he heard this. He reached out and grabbed Mo Yuan's ankle, pulling her underground. In the next moment, a yellow light erupted and the two of them howled deep underground. What an interesting human boy. You were actually able to quietly sneak in here. It looks like you were the one who rescued that girl Mo Yuan. Hearing this voice, Qin Yu's hair stood on end. It wasn't just Sophia, but the dragon overlord. He was also here. Without hesitation, Qin Yu lifted a hand. A partially burnt yellow talisman appeared in his palm. This was what he obtained from Qing Lin after he killed him. The yellow talisman ignited without a flame, instantly turning to ashes. Fierce spatial fluctuations appeared, wrapping around Qin Yu and Mo Yuan. Within his soul space, the cosmic sea-cross bell shook with dissatisfaction. As it sensed the situation Qin Yu faced, it fell silent. The dragon overlord's voice was filled with surprise. Then, with a loud dragon roar, Qin Yu's relaxed heart tightened once more. This was because at this moment, the spatial fluctuations wrapping around the two of them had actually slowed down. In the next moment, the earth above their heads collapsed. Qin Yu looked up and saw a giant hoof coming down. Like a towering mountain, it came crashing down on the two of them. A portion of a yellow talisman had been burnt before, so its strength wasn't complete. Moreover, it needed to transport the two of them away, so its speed was slow. If there was only one of them, they could immediately break free. Qin Yu's eyes revealed a hint of hesitation. At this time, Mo Yuan cried out in alarm. An accessory on her chest shattered, and all of the spatial fluctuations gathered on her body. She vanished into thin air. Qin Yu was stunned. He had been struggling with whether or not he should escape by himself, but who knew that he wouldn't have to worry about this any longer. Mo Yuan had already made the choice for him. Even though she didn't seem to know. It seemed that the ruthless and selfless leader of the Radiant Guard had left behind some methods when facing his own daughter. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. He turned and desperately rushed underground. He was well aware that even if he used the ancient immortal body beneath the absolute suppression of strength, he would still be crushed bit by bit until he finally died. It was impossible to defeat this enemy, and he couldn't escape either. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind before being scattered. If he wanted to live, he had to live. How hateful! The dragon overlord realized that Mo Yuan had suddenly fled. It angrily roared, and its hooves sank downwards, rapidly rising in speed. Bang! There was a heaven-shaking explosion. The entire Great King City could clearly feel the shaking and groaning of the earth. Qin Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. His field of vision darkened. He bit down on the tip of his tongue and forced himself to remain clear-headed, telling himself over and over again that he absolutely could not fall unconscious. Chapter 885. Bang! The earth shattered and mud and stone flew into the air. Qin Yu was imprisoned by an invisible strength and pulled into the air. The bat-winged dragon's eyes were cold. It opened its mouth and roared, its exposed fangs flashing with a cold and cruel luster beneath the sunlight. Humph! You saved someone, but you threw yourself in. I am very curious. Just what kind of mood do you have right now? The great dragon overlord was so angry that he laughed. But there is no need to hurry. I have plenty of time to slowly waste away with you. His words were filled with boiling, killing intent. Qin Yu had saved Mo Yuan twice and ruined the great dragon overlord's plans. He hated Qin Yu to the bone. If Qin Yu really fell into his hands, then perhaps death would be the best result for Qin Yu. At this moment, Qin Yu's entire body was icy cold. But his mind was completely calm. He looked up at Sophia, who had her head bowed in respect. Then he suddenly said, "City Lord, do you remember that cursed life form?" Shua. Sophia fiercely looked up, staring at Qin Yu. Then, her translucent eyes revealed a bit of shock. "It's you." In order to seal away the backlash from the eye of the curse, she had completely sealed herself away. This was why she hadn't sensed the curse aura lingering around Qin Yu's body. But now, as she sensed it, it clearly appeared in front of her. How was this possible? The cursed life form was strange and powerful. Even a divine Tao existence might not be able to escape unscathed. Sophia had always believed that the cursed life form had died to the hands of that woman from the Eastern Zhou family. But now, the truth was right in front of her. Qin Yu's body was stained with the mark of the eye of the curse. Cough, cough. City Lord, perhaps we can make a deal between us. You protect my life, and I will help you complete your goal. Qin Yu didn't dare to delay. He directly tossed out a bargaining chip. Sophia's eyes flashed. With just you, Qin Yu said, I can allow City Lord to leave a spell in my body, but if I complete the mission, you must set me free. Of course, perhaps in the eyes of City Lord, my strength isn't worth mentioning. But perhaps that dead cursed life form will give you more confidence in me. Sophia said, Do you know what I want? Qin Yu said, A woman's life. Sophia was silent for a long time. She turned and looked up. Your Excellency, Dragon Lord, I hope to obtain the right to dispose of this human. Unexpectedly, even with the position of the giant Dragon Lord, he did not show any signs of anger at Sophia's rude request. He lowered his head and observed for a long time before slowly saying, Give me a reason. Sophia said calmly, This world is very big, and there are countless wonderful things that you cannot see if you're trapped in one place. If you agree, I will owe you a favor. In the future, I will give you a chance to leave this place. The Dragon Lord's pupil shrank. You really are. His voice trailed off. All right, I agree. Qin Yu's heart relaxed. But in the next moment, the Dragon Lord's voice continued. Tomorrow, I will hand this human boy over to you. But tonight, he belongs to me. Don't worry. I guarantee that he will be unharmed and will not affect the transaction between you. Sophia furrowed her brows slightly before relaxing them. All right, The bat-winged dragon emitted an excited roar. Its giant claws reached out and grabbed Chinyu. Its wings flapped, and it howled into the skies. The next day, the Dragon Lord returned and handed Chinyu over to Sophia. No one knew what happened that night. Chinyu's face was expressionless, but he exuded an icy chill that came from the depths of his bones. Sophia lightly said, "I've already done my best to obtain you. Otherwise, what you experienced last night would have repeated countless times, and it would have become even more terrifying." Chinyu's face stiffened. He took a deep breath and bowed. "City Lord, rest assured that I will complete the agreement between us." So much time had passed. Although he didn't know what the relationship between her, the Stronghold Master, and godly Dr. Yi was, there was one thing he could be sure of. The City Lord and Stronghold Master both wanted to kill each other. It was because of this that Qin Yu proposed this transaction. And sure enough, Sophia had been moved, and she had saved him from the hands of the giant Dragon Lord. As this name appeared in his mind, Qin Yu subconsciously stiffened. The ruthlessness in his eyes surged, but he forcefully suppressed it. "Very good." Sophia glanced at him. "As long as you can kill that woman, not only will I give you your freedom, but I will also bestow upon you an unimaginable lucky chance. You will become an existence that even the giant Dragon Lord will tremble in fear." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He suppressed his excitement. "Thank you, City Lord." Sophia lifted a hoof and a drop of blood appeared. "But before that, I need to confirm that you are loyal to me. Do not resist. Allow me to leave a mark, and then you may leave." Pa! The hoof fell between his eyebrows, and the drop of blood instantly fused in. At this moment, Qin Yu recalled the method he used to subdue Wang Yu in the mine. Was this karmic retribution? A day later, Qin Yu appeared in the little fragrant mountain. He sat down cross-legged, blood energy flowing around his body. Within his soul space, the sun and moon force field rippled. After a long time, he opened his eyes and let out a light breath. Sophia's control method was similar to the ancient race's blood slaves, but it was even more powerful and focused on the soul. Once a blood contract was formed, all thoughts of the person being controlled could be seen at a glance. It was impossible to hide anything from the controller. Her methods were strong and overbearing, but this also proved that what Sophia fused into Qin Yu's body wasn't just a drop of blood, but also her soul mark. Otherwise, it was impossible to produce such a formidable control strength. Qin Yu's lips curved up in a smile. He finally felt that for the first time, he had the ability to direct matters. This allowed Qin Yu, who had been in a passive position this entire time, to relax. This was truly a blessing in disguise. Taking a deep breath and suppressing all his thoughts, Qin Yu stood up. He turned into a phantom and flew straight towards Nine Nether Peak. 2 days later, Qin Yu arrived at the base of Nine Nether Peak. From afar, he could feel a terrifying oppression coming from the summit. This sort of feeling was like a great beast was slumbering here, ready to open its eyes at any moment and destroy the entire world with brute force. The source of this oppression was divine Dr. Yi. In comparison, the aura of the Stronghold Master beside him was countless times weaker, faintly emitting traces of exhaustion and decadence. Without stopping, Qin Yu flew up Nine Nether Peak. He didn't know why, but there wasn't a single person on the entire mountain. But, as he looked carefully, he couldn't find any signs that it had been attacked. "Who is it?" With a low shout, a resplendent sword light whizzed over. Qin Yu sidestepped. "Little Zhao, it's me." Xiao Zhao's eyes widened, a look of pleasant surprise on her face. "Qin Yu, you're still alive." An accident had occurred in Little Fragrant Mountain. A massive number of Obums had rushed in, and even a super powerhouse of a race, the Great Dragon Overlord, had arrived. She never imagined that Qin Yu would live to this day. Why are you here?" Just as Qin Yu's voice fell, godly Dr. Ye's tired voice sounded in his ear. "Qin Yu, come on up." His expression changed slightly, and he said, "Xiao Zhao, I'll go see the chief and miracle Dr. Yi first. We'll talk later." Then, he continued to fly toward the peak of the mountain. Xiao Zhao's complexion changed. "Qin Yu, be careful. Qin Yu didn't hear the rest of her words, but he soon understood what Xiao Zhao was warning him about. Starting from the mountainside, everything in sight had turned gray and white. Whether it was the stones, the soil, or even the plants that had taken root, everything had turned into this strange color of life. As his eyes fell upon him, a great fear instinctively rose from the depths of his heart. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows, but he didn't stop. He rushed straight in, and then his complexion changed once more. As he entered the gray and white region, he discovered that his life force was constantly flowing out of his body. Moreover, the deeper he went, the faster the rate became. It was like there was an invisible monster that swallowed all life in this region. Not daring to be careless, Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. The sun-moon force field wrapped around his body, and the loss of his life force immediately stopped. He looked up at the mountain peak and sped up. After several breaths of time, he arrived outside the residence of the chief. Qin Yu took a deep breath and pushed open the door. It was only when he reached the main hall that he saw the chief and godly Dr. Yi. His pupils shrank. Qin Yu cupped his hands together and bowed. "Greetings, Chief, godly Dr. Yi." In a short period of time, the tall and sturdy chief had become nothing more than a bag of bones. His aura was dispirited to the extreme, as if he could die at any moment. Beside him, although godly Dr. Yi was a bit better off, he still had a tired expression, and the aura of decay filled his body. Although his appearance hadn't changed, the feeling he gave off was that he had aged countless years. Cough, cough. I never thought that a boy like you would still be alive. I really wasn't wrong about you. Godly Dr. Ye's eyes were deep. You killed Qing Lin, ensured that the Heavenly Unity Azure Gold Array continued to operate, looted the capital city, and forced a massive number of opums to turn back. Were these things done by you? Qin Yu nodded. Since I accepted this mission, I will naturally do my best to help the chief. Godly Dr. Yi said, You have done well, better than I expected. But what a pity. Shui Zheng and the woman you brought back are at the base of the mountain. Go find Xiao Zhao, and she will naturally bring you there. Then, you should leave as soon as possible. Qin Yu frowned. The chief, godly Dr. Yi waved his hand. There are some matters that you cannot meddle in. Don't ask. Go. He closed his eyes, no longer speaking. At this moment, Qin Yu had an impulse to turn and leave. After all, in essence, he was a stranger to the chief and godly Dr. Yi. In fact, he didn't even know the true identities of these two people. There was also the element of him being forced to cooperate with them in secret. But after a moment of silence, Qin Yu suppressed this thought. He had already begun to place his chess piece. He had to make sure that this game of chess continued in the direction he wanted it to eventually end. Otherwise, he would gain nothing. However, looking at the current situation, the chief and godly Dr. Yi seemed to have reached the end of their tether and were ready to give up. If so, then the conditions he originally prepared seemed a bit too thin. He could open his mouth even wider. His thoughts raced. Qin Yu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, Chief, when I was in the capital city, City Lord Sophia captured me. I promised her that I would come back and kill a woman. Only then would she let me go. Shua, godly Dr. Ye's eyes flashed open. A sharp light exploded within them, coldly falling on Qin Yu as if it wanted to pierce through him. It really is a message from the Blood Mantis Mark. How about it? Qin Yu, are you preparing to attack and see if you can kill us? There was ridicule in his icy cold voice. Even now, over 90% of his strength was used to suppress the young Miss injuries. Even if he only used a trace of it, it would still be enough to reduce Qin Yu to dregs. The chief's eyelids trembled, and he opened his eyes with difficulty. Such a simple action seemed to consume a tremendous amount of strength. His breathing became rough and unsteady. Old Yi, let him finish. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. This boy and Shui Zheng are indebted to 9 Nether Peak for saving us. It is only because of this that we are able to live to this day. I will not attack the chief. Rather, I have a method that can allow the chief to be the one laughing in the end. Godly Dr. Ye's complexion relaxed a little. A complex look appeared in his eyes. You might not know how terrifying the Blood Mantis Mark is. Any action you take, any thought you have will be grasped by it. The young Miss position has already been exposed by you. There wasn't much anger in his tone. After all, they had already decided to give up. Moreover, Qin Yu's fate would be far more miserable than theirs, let alone the fact that he didn't even have a tenth of his strength left. Even if he was in perfect condition, godly Dr. Yi still wouldn't have been able to dispel the blood-drinking puppet's control. Chapter 886. Half an hour passed. Miracle Dr. Ye's eyes widened. He stubbornly stared at Qin Yu, as if he had seen a ghost. Qin Yu softly said, since I dare to say it, I naturally have some confidence. The Stronghold Master's eyes were dim, and her aura was on the verge of drying up. Suddenly, she said, Qin Yu, if you can really help me, you can state your conditions. She had truly reached the end of her rope. Standing in front of her at this time, Qin Yu was her final life-saving straw. In truth, even though she had sensed that Qin Yu wasn't ordinary from the start, she still didn't think this day would come. This person was even more outstanding than she had imagined. Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. I do have some matters that I would like to ask Stronghold Master and Miracle Dr. Yi for help. He didn't hesitate and went straight to the point. First, I hope that you too can help me save Shuizheng. The two of them shared weal and woe, life and death as one. This was certainly the most important matter. Qin Yu didn't want to suddenly be dragged down and lose his life while he was still alive and well. Miracle Dr. Yi frowned. Qin Yu, I won't lie to you. If I were in perfect condition, I might have a chance to save him. But right now, I can't save him. Qin Yu's heart sank, and his complexion became ugly. He asked in a low voice, Is it really impossible? Shuizheng has suffered severe injuries that have caused his soul to wither and fall into a deep slumber. Only someone at the original God realm or above can help or absorb a powerful soul-enhancing treasure can awaken him. Miracle Dr. Yi had a calm expression. You should be aware of the current situation. I have no reason to lie to you. The Stronghold Master suddenly said, Qin Yu, I can help you condense Shuizheng's original God mark. After you absorb it, you can borrow a part of his original God realm power. With your ability, after you add the original God mark, you can be a bit more cautious in this world. It shouldn't be a problem for you to protect yourself. Moreover, I will have Old Yi help you stabilize Shuizheng's injuries so that they won't worsen for a short time. At that time, you can slowly think of a way to wake him up. How about it? Qin Yu frowned in silence. This was a good proposal, but compared to directly waking Shuizheng up, it was far from it. Miracle Dr. Yi said, There's one more thing. The woman you saved, the one who solidified into Obum, is quite strong. I can pay an extra price to unseal her sealed power. At that time, she will become your helper and help you save Shuizheng. Qin Yu took a deep breath. Besides this, what else can I obtain? The Stronghold Master raised his hand. In his withered and skinny palm, wisps of light condensed and solidified into a jade tablet. Hoochie, hoochie, the Stronghold Master gasped for breath. He waved his hand, and a jade tablet flew towards Qin Yu. Ha! Sensing that nothing was wrong, Qin Yu reached out and caught it. A massive amount of information gushed out, directly fusing into his memories. A moment later, Qin Yu opened his eyes. Before he could speak, Miracle Dr. Yi savagely said, Brat, don't be too greedy. Just a jade card in your hand is enough to make a group of original divinities fight over it. He didn't expect that the miss would actually take out this item. However, it was also because of this that the adjudication rules didn't sense it. It was unknown what method the Stronghold Master used, but his breathing quickly stabilized and his eyes brightened. It was just that his withered body now had an even more decaying aura to it. This jade tablet was obtained by my father when he ventured into a mystic realm. Although I haven't been able to completely perceive it, its value is absolutely incomparable. Today, I will give it to you as a token of my thanks. In the future, if you can leave this world, you can bring it to me, and I will agree to a request of yours. Qin Yu flipped his hand and put away the jade tablet. Deal! Miracle Dr. Yi coldly sneered. Brat, now it's your turn. Don't try to play any tricks, otherwise I have 10,000 ways to make you wish you were dead. Qin Yu said, Old Yi, rest assured that I won't seek my own death. He stepped forwards, and an earthy yellow light bloomed. The ground turned into liquid and slowly swallowed him up. I will help the Stronghold Master fulfill his wish. I hope that the two of you can keep your promise and not go back on your word. The Stronghold Master's eyes flashed. He knew that this was Qin Yu's final worry. He immediately said, I, Eastern Zhou Jiali, swear to the heavens that I will forever keep my promise with Qin Yu. If I violate it in the slightest, I am willing to suffer the wrath of the heavens and earth. As his voice fell, an invisible fluctuation spread out in space. This was a change in the rules. An invisible feeling appeared in Qin Yu's heart. An oath of the rules. Qin Yu closed his eyes and sank into the earth. Stronghold Master, please wait a moment. There will soon be a result. Underground, the earthy yellow light opened up a space. With a thought, the rules instantly twisted, shielding out all perception. Qin Yu sat down cross-legged and lifted a hand to touch between his eyebrows. Bang! Within his soul space, the phantom of a black altar appeared. Faint traces of black energy rose up, gathering above it into a black skull. Jejejage, it hasn't been too long, and yet you have summoned me again. But why don't I smell the scent of sacrifice? The black skull lowered its head, looking down at Qin Yu's soul. The depths of its eyes were as red as the sea, tumbling and tumbling. My contract trading partner, what explanation do you have for this? Shua. Qin Yu's soul opened its eyes and calmly looked at the black skull. It lightly said, Great Lord of Black Nightmare, because of some unexpected reasons, I need you to provide me with additional help. According to the contract we signed a long time ago, I have this right. The Lord of Black Nightmare laughed. Of course, you have the qualifications to summon me and obtain additional help. Then, my contract trading partner, what do you need the Great Lord of Black Nightmare to help you with? Qin Yu said, Because of certain reasons, I have suffered from a powerful manipulation method. I asked the Great Lord of Black Nightmare to help me clean up the hidden dangers in my body. Of course, as a reward, the soul of the life form that left a manipulation method in my body will be sacrificed to you. Oh, is that so? Jejejage, it sounds very interesting. The Lord of Black Nightmare took a deep breath. Strong winds rose within his soul space, and even Qin Yu's soul was forcefully pulled. I found it. Jejage, this is a very delicious soul. My contract trading partner, you have given me a very good gift. That's right. The Great Lord of Black Nightmare has decided to abide by the contract and help you remove the hidden dangers in your body. Now, you need to give up resistance and allow my strength to enter your body. You will definitely agree, right? Qin Yu nodded without expression. Of course. The Lord of Black Nightmare laughed. Then let's begin now. Such a wonderful soul. I can't wait any longer. Great King City, City Lord Mansion. Sophia was restless. She didn't know why, but she couldn't sense the blood puppet mark she had left in Qin Yu's body. No, to be more precise, she could feel that the blood puppet mark was still intact and remained in Qin Yu's body. But she couldn't sense the outside world through it, nor could she issue any orders. It was like this blood puppet mark was wrapped in a thick membrane and had lost all contact with the outside world. Sophia had never encountered such a situation before. It left her feeling uneasy. Moreover, as time passed, this feeling of anxiety became more and more intense. There was a problem. There had to be a problem. Qin Yu's figure appeared in her mind. Sophia clenched her teeth. She didn't know how Qin Yu had done it, but it was clear that the reason lay with him. Damn, this hateful bastard. I hope you can pray to the heavens that you will never fall into my hand again. Otherwise, I will make you understand that the Dragon Overlord's methods are nothing more than child's play. At this moment, Sophia, who had been filled with hatred, suddenly felt her heart throbbing. Without any warning, it was like a cold river in the middle of winter had been poured over her head, causing her hairs to stand on end. Sophia's first thought was that she was about to lose control of the backlash from the Eye of Curse. But in the next moment, She couldn't help but widen her eyes and let out a scream. No! Sophia's voice came to an abrupt end, and she fell to the ground. In her widened eyes, an extremely terrifying scene appeared. A black bone claw had grabbed onto Sophia, who had shrunk countless times. Then, with a strange cackle, she sank deep into the depths of the Eye of Curse, finally vanishing from sight. At this moment, the ruler of the great king city, the one with an incomparably mysterious background who was able to make a deal with the dragon overlord, City Lord Sophia, had completely lost her aura. In a sense, she had already died. At almost the same time, in the distant depths of Little Fragrant Mountain, on Nine Nether Peak, Dongzhou Chali's aura was gradually drying up once more. As she struggled to endure the pain, her eyes suddenly popped open. The dignified voice of the ruling rules echoed in her ears. In this battle, Dongzhou Chali has won. At the latest, she must leave this world within 2 hours. Bang, bang. A deep and dull sound spread out from her body, as if some seal had been torn open. Boundless strength surged out, instantly dispersing all the weakness and pain. Cracks appeared on the withered body of the stronghold master. It was like a skin bag that had lost all meaning was being torn apart at this moment. Miss! Divine Dr. Ye's eyes widened, his face full of surprise. A blinding light emitted from Dongzhou Chali's body. It instantly distorted space, as if a great sun had descended upon this world. Luckily, this aura only existed for a moment before it rapidly collapsed and shrank, not truly spreading outwards. Otherwise, the entire world would have clearly sensed it and would tremble beneath this aura. The sun-like light gradually converged, revealing Dongzhou Chali, who had shed her skin. She wore a long pink dress that fell on her flawless body. Light and shadow condensed into a veil, making her face faintly discernible. But just her star-like eyes alone were enough to make one feel the soul-stirring beauty within her. Looking down, Dongzhou Chali's eyes fell on the ground, as if they could see through everything. Her eyes flashed, and she cried out in surprise. Time returned to a moment ago. Within Qin Yu's soul space, the Lord of Black Serpent took back his bone claw. There was only a soul fragment within. Although the smell was still enchanting, it was far from what he had expected. Humph! You cunning little thing, you actually dared to escape from the hands of the great Lord of Black Serpent. You will forever suffer the burning of the black flames of extinction, unable to escape for all eternity. His roar reverberated like thunder. Qin Yu's soul paled, and he found it hard to conceal the pain in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Great Lord of Black Serpent, the transaction between us has been completed. Please leave." Leave? The Lord of Black Serpent sneered. Jejejage, my contractual trading partner, you seem to have forgotten that the great Lord of Black Serpent never makes a losing transaction. This time, I haven't received enough compensation for the losses I suffered after descending. So, take your soul and flesh and blood as compensation for me. With a strange laugh, the Black Skull opened its mouth and sucked in a deep breath at Qin Yu. At the same time, another Black Skull appeared beside Qin Yu's soul. Its deathly still eyes suddenly turned scarlet, and it let out a strange laugh. Pa! This Black Skull shattered and directly fused into Qin Yu's soul, completely imprisoning him. In the next moment, Qin Yu was unable to resist, and his soul was swallowed into the mouth. Kacha! Kacha! The skull chewed hard, and Qin Yu's soul was directly torn apart. At the same time, his flesh and blood rapidly decayed and fell off, revealing the white bones below. Time seemed to pass crazily. The bones quickly turned pale and finally shattered with a pa. Jejejage, now, you and I are truly intimate. Everything you have will become a part of the great Lord of Black Serpent. This will be the best ending for you. After the first summon, the Lord of Black Serpent reacted. He had been frightened by Qin Yu. Although he didn't know the specific reason, there was clearly a huge problem with his contract partner. Just as he was regretting, Qin Yu summoned him again. Therefore, the Lord of Black Serpent had decided to devour him from the very beginning. Although he couldn't devour the other soul, he was already extremely satisfied with being able to devour Chinyu. The Lord of Black Serpent laughed heartily. Blood-colored cracks appeared on the surface of the descending black skull. That was the backlash of the contract. But now that Chinyu had been killed, the backlash of the contract had lost its leader and could be resisted by losing a portion of its strength. The cunning and ferocious Lord of Black Serpent had left a backdoor for himself to break the contract from the very beginning. This was also an important reason why he was able to grow in a short tens of thousands of years. More than a dozen powerful foreign creatures that had traded with him had been completely devoured and turned into energy for him to strengthen himself. Today was just another addition to the Lord of Black Serpent's hunting record. Chapter 887. In the next moment, it screamed out miserably. The blood-red cracks on the surface of the black skull opened up like a baby opening its mouth. Then, countless screams sounded from within, revealing scorching heat, greed, and boundless hunger. It was like a monster that had been imprisoned for countless years had finally found food and couldn't wait to tear it to pieces and devour it. Great Black Nightmare Lord, you seem to have underestimated the contract partner you chose for something like this to happen. I am very disappointed. A calm and taunting voice echoed out in the underground space. A phantom appeared and rapidly solidified, finally turning into a brand new Chinyu. He looked up, his eyes falling onto the black skull that was struggling in pain. The Black Nightmare Lord screamed, "No, impossible. With your current level of strength, how could you have the ability to be reborn?" Chinyu had no expression. But this is the truth. He lifted his hand. The blood-red cracks on the surface of the black skull began to emit excited screams, as if they were waiting for Chinyu's will to arrive so they could swallow it up. "No, no, please don't be like this. Great Black Nightmare Lord, I am willing to pay sufficient compensation in exchange for your forgiveness." Chinyu smiled. "Of course, everything in this world has a price, but my life is very, very precious. It seems we will need to have a good talk." As he spoke, he seemed to inadvertently look up, his eyes pausing for a moment. An hour later, the Black Altar and the Black Nightmare Lords were retreated. Chinyu let out a light breath. With a light cracking sound, the ring of rebirth on his finger shattered into powder. A trace of regret flashed in his eyes, but Chinyu didn't regret it. Although he had used this extremely precious treasure, he had also obtained a great harvest. Moreover, if it weren't for this, how could he have broken out of his current predicament? He had already expected this result in the great king city. Chinyu took a deep breath and suppressed his thoughts. With a thought, his body was wrapped in a yellow light, and he flashed out from underground, appearing in his room. Miracle Dr. Yi had a gratified expression. He was sitting on a chair to the side, his eyes closed in meditation. At this time, he opened a crack and revealed a look of surprise. Beside him, the Stronghold Master had already disappeared, replaced by a tall, graceful, and alluring figure. She wore a long, pink dress, which further accentuated her transcendent aura. But now, Chinyu's thoughts didn't even fall on her looks. He swept his eyes over her and bowed. "Stronghold Master, I have not failed in my mission." Although his expression was calm, his heart was shaking. In his senses, this figure in front of him was like a burning sun. Even though he was just standing there, he could still feel a terrifying burning sensation rushing towards him. It was as if with a single thought she could burn him to ashes. Chinyu was sure that this wasn't an illusion. She really did possess the strength to decide his life or death with a single thought. Who exactly was this woman? Why had she come here? Everything was a mystery. "Chinyu, you are very outstanding. You are stronger than I imagined. If you are willing, I can make you my follower." Dongzhou Zhili looked straight into Chinyu's eyes and slowly said. Chinyu was silent for several moments. "If I refuse, that is your right. I will not force you." Dongzhou Zhili stood up, as if she had been waiting all this time for these words. "My previous promise will not change. If you change your mind in the future, You can come find me at any time. The jade token will guide you. As her words fell, Dongzhou Zhili lifted a hand, and a golden seed appeared. She looked deeply at Qinyu, and then stepped forwards, vanishing from sight. Miracle Dr. Yi chuckled. Brat Qinyu, the status of my family's misfollower is incomparably precious. Don't miss this opportunity. With a half-serious reminder, he followed closely behind and stepped into the space. In Qinyu's senses, their auras had completely vanished. In this world, there was no longer any trace of them. Qinyu relaxed and came to a sudden realization. Dongzhou Zhili, Old Yi, and even City Lord Sophia, who had been plotted against by the Black Lotus Sovereign, weren't living beings of this world. They had only descended here in the form of divine avatars for some reason. The origins of these people were likely far greater than he had imagined. Qinyu suddenly thought that Sophia hadn't truly died yet. She must hate him to the bone. To be remembered by such a woman with terrifying strength and an even more terrifying background. Qinyu suddenly felt that he was in great danger. But since he had already done what he had to do, being afraid was useless. Thus, he did what he had to do. Qinyu lifted his hand and grasped the golden seed that Dongzhou Zhili had left behind before she left. A warm and intimate feeling spread out from it. It fused into Qinyu's flesh and blood, like a true seed that rapidly sprouted within him. A moment later, Qinyu looked down at the faintly discernible mark in his palm. Was this the origin spirit mark? He closed his eyes and sensed it. After several breaths of time, Qinyu stepped forwards. Space seemed to fold around him, as if he had passed through a layer of water. Qinyu appeared at the base of the mountain. Xiang Shui was standing guard at Shui Zheng's side, occasionally looking up at the summit. Her aura instantly erupted, but as she saw that it was Qinyu, she immediately restrained it. This woman was truly strong. After returning to her human form, Xiang Shui's appearance was unexpectedly exquisite. Her every movement revealed a slightly mature charm. She rolled her eyes at Qinyu and said, "Have you never seen a beautiful woman before?" As she spoke, she lifted a hand and lifted her long hair. A gust of wind blew past, bringing with it a sweet fragrance. Qinyu coughed, ignoring her deliberate flirtatiousness. He stepped forwards and examined Shui Zheng's condition. Although his complexion was pale, his aura had stabilized. After sensing for a moment, Qinyu drew back his finger and let out a breath of relief. It seemed that Old Yi had stabilized his condition before he left. His thoughts stirred. Qinyu lifted a hand and spread his fingers. The origin spirit mark on his palm flashed, releasing a faint halo of light. Shui Zheng's body floated up. As he approached, he rapidly shrank until he turned into a dot of light that submerged into the origin spirit mark and vanished from sight. Qinyu turned to look at Xiang Shui and said, "Following this, you will follow me until I wake him up. Is that all right with you?" Xiang Shui humphed. "Old Yi has already told me. I will listen to your orders for the following period of time." She swept her eyes over Qinyu. "But don't even think about having any improper thoughts. I will not sell my body." Qinyu's lips twitched. "You think too much. Thank you," Xiang Shui suddenly said. Qinyu was stunned. "What?" Xiang Shui's lips curled up. "If you didn't hear it, then forget it. Tell me, what do you want to do next?" Qinyu looked at her belly and rationally didn't ask where the unborn child was. He knew that she didn't want to talk about the past, so he thought for a moment and said, "What happened in Little Fragrant Mountain has nothing to do with us anymore. We should leave, but I have an enemy. If I don't kill him, I won't be able to calm my heart." City Lord Sophia had been assassinated. For a time, Great King City was shaken. The opiums that had crazily rushed into Little Fragrant Mountain began to retreat. The main character was already dead, so the orders they issued were no longer effective. They naturally didn't want to risk their lives. But soon, the opiums discovered that even if they wanted to leave, it was already too late. The Great Dragon Overlord ordered that all the opiums in Little Fragrant Mountain would be summoned to participate in the war against heavenly punishment. Any opiums that try to leave the battlefield would be treated as traitors. They would be killed on the spot. Mo Ming was here, and the Great Dragon Overlord wouldn't let him leave. No matter what price he had to pay, he had to kill him. The great dragon overlord, who was racking his brains and gnashing his teeth, swore that he wouldn't let Ming leave Little Fragrant Mountain alive. What he didn't know was that Yu had already found the location of the Primal Chaos longboat. He had decided to join forces with Heavenly Punishment to send it to hell. The Primal Chaos longboat used by the Primal Chaos longboat was a supreme treasure of heavenly punishment. It could hide in the void and traverse the turbulence of space. It could also gather and mobilize the arrays engraved on it, erupting with an extremely powerful combat strength. In the previous battle, one of the bat-winged dragon's wings had been destroyed by the Primal Chaos longboat's attack. In addition to its powerful combat strength, the Primal Chaos longboat's concealment methods were also exquisite. If it weren't for this, the light guards that had entered Little Fragrant Mountain alone would have been surrounded and killed by the Opums. The reason why the great dragon overlord was silent and allowed the Primal Chaos longboat to remain here was because the Opums knew that once they gathered their strength, the light guards would immediately flee. Of course, more importantly, they acknowledged the power of the great dragon overlord. Even if they were in a stalemate, all they needed was an opportunity. As long as the opportunity arrived, the great dragon overlord would definitely be able to keep all the light guards here. Yu smoothly found the Primal Chaos longboat. He used the body of the ancient to change his appearance, turning into an ordinary youth. Whoosh, whoosh, with the sound of breaking air, 2 arrows pierced through the earth at nearly the same time. They sank deep into the earth, leaving behind 2 bottomless black holes the size of thumbs. One was in front of Yu, and the other was behind him. Yu looked down at the holes. Without changing his complexion, he said, "I have a proposal to cooperate with. I wonder if Commander Ming would be interested." Ripples appeared in the void in front of him, and the Primal Chaos longboat appeared. At this time, a part of its surface had turned transparent. Ming had a calm expression. "You coward! I'm not interested in your deal." It was unknown what method he had used, but he was able to sense that Yu had changed his appearance. Yu lightly said, "I want to kill the great dragon overlord." Ming's pupil shrank. "With just you." Yu stepped forwards. With a single step, the earth rumbled and arrows shot out from the holes in front and behind him. His arm swept out in a circle, grabbing the arrows and fiercely throwing them forwards. Rumble, rumble. It was like 2 evil dragons had escaped into the heavens. Their roars stirred up the strength of the world, tearing apart all obstacles in front of them and causing space to collapse wherever they went. In the distance, 2 great mountains collapsed at the same time. Countless rocks flew out, creating shrill whistling sounds as they rubbed against the air. Beside Ming, the bright light guard who had shot out the 2 warning arrows had a change in complexion. This person's casual strike hadn't even borrowed the strength of his bow, yet it had such might. This person's strength was truly terrifying. In the silence, Ming narrowed his eyes. He lightly said, "It's not enough." Yu thought for a moment. He said, "I was the one who killed Qinglin." With these words, the cooperation was smoothly completed. Ming only had a single condition, and that was that he had to personally kill the great dragon overlord. Yu nodded without hesitation. In his opinion, it was fine as long as he could take revenge. As for how his enemy died, that wasn't important. Of course, if Yu had the strength to kill the great dragon overlord by himself right now, perhaps he wouldn't think this way. 3 days later, outside the great king's city, countless Obums cried out in alarm. They watched helplessly as the nearly 100,000-foot-long Chaos longship smashed through space and descended. Ming personally threw out a spear. In an instant, the city walls were destroyed for 100 miles. The spear pierced through the earth and exploded, filling the skies with dust. After finishing this, the Chaos longship vanished from sight. The dust that soared into the skies condensed on its own, turning into a line of words. "Tomorrow at noon, we will fight to the death at the summit of 9 Nether Peak." There was no indication of who this was for, But all the Oboms knew that this was a declaration of war to the great dragon overlord. Ah ha ha ha! Good, good, good. The great dragon overlord reared his head back and laughed. Mo Ming, no matter what, I will definitely keep the appointment tomorrow. Beneath him, the bat-winged dragon reared its head back and roared. A terrifying aura swept out. Within 1,000 meters, all the Oboms exploded, blood raining down like rain. The surrounding Oboms drew back in panic, not daring to approach at all. They all swallowed their words of persuasion back into their stomachs. The great dragon overlord had gone insane. Anyone who dared to persuade him was seeking death. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. Commander Mo Ming, are you certain that the great dragon overlord will come tomorrow? Mo Ming held his hands behind his back. He didn't turn his head. His tone was calm. I'm certain that he will come. Deep in his eyes, an icy, killing intent swirled. Chapter 888. My name is Doderager. Of course, very few people know this name now. They prefer to address me respectfully as the giant dragon overlord. But to be honest, I've never liked this flashy title. To be more precise, I hate it because everything I have now is meaningless to me. If I could choose, I wish to live an ordinary life as Doderager and not become the powerful monster that I am now. That's right, this is my definition of myself. A person who should have died, but somehow managed to survive. I still maintain my original soul, but my body is completely distorted and mutated. A monster. The entire Obom race views me as their spiritual leader. They respect me, fear me, and worship me, because they can't imagine that someone of their race can actually turn around and devour the source of fear, the giant bat-winged dragon, which is imprinted in the bloodline of their race. It's really laughable because what they see is only one side of me. Indeed, I could devour the giant bat-winged dragon, but in reality, there are very few of them. Thus, the food source that allows me to continue living and possess great power is the Oboms, just like me. That's right, I eat Oboms not only occasionally, but every day and in large quantities. Of course, in order to maintain my image, they eventually disappear in the name of entering the stomach of the giant bat-winged dragon. Because of this, the short man who wields great power in the royal city boldly allowed me to become their spiritual leader, giving me a position that is almost equal to his. That's because he knew that I'm a monster a long time ago, and no matter what, a monster can never pose a threat to his position. He only needs to move his finger to tear apart the dazzling outer layer that covers me. I've eaten my own wife, children, and parents. Now, I'm just a shell with the body of a monster wandering in this world. My only reason for living is to kill the person who caused all of this, the human cultivator who indirectly turned me into a monster. His name is Mo Ming. Now, the opportunity has finally come. He's here. I, Doderager. No, I'm the giant dragon overlord. Let the name Doderager be buried along with my memories forever. I, the giant dragon overlord, swear that no matter what price I have to pay, even if I die here, I will tear Mo Ming into pieces and drag him down to hell with me. Many years later, when the choice was placed in front of him, Qin Yu suddenly understood why the great dragon overlord had come to Nine Nether Peak without hesitation despite knowing that there was a trap there. This was not only because he had absolute confidence in his own strength, but also because he would have the opportunity to kill Mo Ming as soon as he arrived. For this opportunity, the Dragon Lord was willing to take the risk. Therefore, Mo Ming's confident guarantee was verified on the second day. Hidden in the darkness, Qin Yu looked up towards the outside of Nine Nether Peak. The great dragon overlord had arrived. Roar. Far away, the roar of the bat-winged dragon was like a thunderclap, reverberating in the air. The majestic aura was mixed with an irresistible, disdainful power, causing people to instinctively feel fear from the bottom of their hearts when they heard this voice. This was a pressure that came from the top of the food chain. Ruthless and cruel creature. Mo Ming slowly looked up. His gaze crossed space and met the Dragon Lord's. Neither side spoke, but they could both clearly feel the icy, killing intent in the other's heart. From today onwards, only one person would be able to leave this place alive. This discovery left both sides satisfied. At the very least, it confirmed that today's attack wasn't a feint. As for who died and who lived, that would depend on their own methods and fate. The Chaos longship floated in the skies. Although it was a distance away from Nine Nether Peak, it was still a powerful deterrent, warning the Obom races not to try anything funny. The great dragon Overlord swept his eyes around. He suddenly lifted a hand and pressed it down. Let's not let these little fellows interfere in our battle. Bang! For where the great king city was, a terrifying blood-red beam of light shot up into the skies. It was thick and scarlet, as if it were tangible. Like this, it rose up from the ground, connecting with the heavens and earth. Even from tens of thousands of miles away, one could still clearly see it. Then, the blood-colored beam of light that shot up into the sky seemed to have passed through a refracted mirror. It made a turn in the sky and directly descended into this world, enveloping the Chaos longboat. Mo Ming's brows furrowed slightly, then relaxed. He strode forward, and with every step he took, his aura grew a little stronger. Although his body didn't change at all, he could sense that Mo Ming was like a giant that supported the heavens and earth. Every step he took caused the world to rumble and endless spiritual strength to surge outwards, roaring like a raging sea. The great dragon Overlord's eyes narrowed before brightening. He laughed. As I thought, you've been hiding your strength all these years. But this is even better. Roar! The bat-winged dragon roared and spewed out a terrifying dragon breath. Blazing flames tumbled outwards, able to burn away even the air. Mo Ming remained expressionless. He lifted a hand and punched out. The world violently shook and the dragon breath shattered, turning into countless pieces that fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, Nine Nether Peak was set ablaze. Blazing flames soared into the skies. But these flames couldn't spread towards the mountain peak at all. The boundless strength that flooded the world made it so that they didn't dare to approach. He lifted a hand towards the skies. Thunder rumbled in the skies. Black clouds began to gather, and lightning began to spread outwards. Then, a bolt of purple thunder fell into Mo Ming's hand. It solidified into a long thunder spear. He raised his hand, and the long spear held out. The great dragon Overlord stood up. His tiny body stood on the back of the bat-winged dragon. If one looked at the scene alone, it would seem extremely comical. But at this moment, an incomparably terrifying aura was released from his body. It was like a towering mountain suppressing the entire world. Everywhere he looked, everything in the world seemed to shiver beneath his aura. The great dragon Overlord lifted a front hoof and stomped forwards. The thick black clouds above were instantly torn apart. A terrifying hoof print fell from the skies, colliding with a long thunder spear. With a heaven-shaking explosion, a wild strength tumbled outwards like a tsunami. With loud rumbles, the blazing flames of the dragon breath were instantly extinguished. Where Mo Ming stood, the earth violently rumbled. Then the ground sank down, forming a giant hoof print. Although this strike collided with a long thunder spear, all of the strength contained within it was completely withstood by Mo Ming alone. Right at this moment, the ground beneath Mo Ming's feet suddenly seemed to have come to life, and it turned into a black liquid that was viscous like syrup. When it touched Mo Ming's body, it seemed to be alive as it madly spread upwards, and in the blink of an eye, it covered his entire body. The great dragon Overlord fiercely lowered his head and looked at the earth. A pitch-black figure that seemed to be formed from liquid rose up from the ground. Facing the great dragon Overlord's gaze, the figure slowly said, "I have come on the orders of the Emperor to assist your Excellency in killing the leader of the Radiant Guard, Mo Ming." Scram! The great dragon Overlord roared. The bat-winged dragon beneath him ruthlessly flapped its wings. The air instantly distorted, forming pitch-black cracks that converged from all directions and slashed at the pitch-black figure. Puff! In the blink of an eye, this person was pierced through by the spatial cracks. His body shattered, but he didn't seem to feel any pain at all. A calm voice sounded out from the mouth that was half his head. Your Excellency, please do not let your emotions affect your decisions. This is an extremely rare opportunity. Mo Ming must die here. Bang! The black liquid shattered, revealing Mo Ming's figure below. His complexion was pale, as if he had been caught off guard just now and had suffered a loss. The great dragon overlord roared, I told you to scram. Cruel killing intent locked onto him. If he didn't obtain a satisfactory reply, he would explosively attack in the next moment. The pitch-black figure that reformed frowned. Just as he was about to say something, his complexion changed. In the next moment, a pale white palm pressed against his back. A terrifying strength surged out, instantly tearing his body apart. It's you. Black liquid splashed out in all directions. It quickly gathered together and reformed into a human form. He stared at Xiang Shui, shock in his eyes. At this time, Xiang Shui's eyes were bloodshot. Her aura surged around her, stirring up the strength of the world to form a vortex that rumbled around her. She glared at the man formed from black liquid across from her. Her voice was filled with an endless chill. Are you shocked that I'm still alive? This damned heavens. They've finally shown me mercy and allowed me to meet you here. Xiang Donglei, let's clean up the debt between us today. The darkness on his face faded away, revealing the face of a middle-aged man. He looked at Xiang Shui, a complex look in his eyes before he composed himself. Indeed, I did not expect that you would be able to live to this day. In that case, let me completely correct this mistake. Xiang Shui coldly sneered. It's hard to say who will live and who will die. Bang! The vortex of strength twisting around his body instantly erupted. Like a giant monster opening its mouth, it tore towards him. The man's face turned pitch black once more. His eyes were covered, as well as all his emotions. He had become a monster that only knew slaughter. Bang! The man's body exploded, turning into countless black dots that fell to the ground, smashing massive holes in the ground. Then the entire earth began to tremble. With a deep rumbling sound, a terrifying stone monster drilled out from the ground. Its entire body was pitch black, and its four limbs lay flat on the ground. Sharp stone spikes grew out from its spine and limbs. With a loud roar, the monster rushed towards Xiang Shui. The stone spikes all over its body trembled, causing the air to become thick and nearly freeze. The descending vortex of strength was immediately imprisoned in the air. It collided and ground against each other, emitting heaven-shaking rumbling sounds. Qin Yu never imagined that things would turn out like this. But it seemed that Xiang Shui had a deep hatred for this black mud man. Whatever, he would just let her be. At the very least, looking at the current situation, it wouldn't be easy for her to win, and she wouldn't be defeated anytime soon. Interesting. The great dragon overlord looked back at Mo Ming. This is what you secretly prepared. This woman is indeed strong. If you join forces, I might have had some trouble. But it's clear that your luck isn't too good. It seems that even the heavens are standing on my side today. Mo Ming shook his head. I did prepare something else, but it wasn't her. As he spoke, he lifted a hand and pressed forwards. The black clouds that had been torn apart in the skies began to wildly tumble about. With a loud explosion, trillions of bolts of lightning came crashing down. They didn't directly attack. Rather, they rapidly fused together in midair, forming something similar to a thunderblade that cut down at the bat-winged dragon. Roar! With a dragon's cry, the bat-winged dragon's massive body vanished in a thin air. The great dragon overlord easily drew back, avoiding this powerful strike. Chapter 889. Without needing Mo Ming to say anything, Qin Yu knew that it was time for him to go on stage. Thus, before he finished speaking, Qin Yu had already appeared where the bat-winged dragon had disappeared. He raised his hand and punched. The next moment, the bat-winged dragon that had just appeared was caught off guard by the punch. Its scales shattered, and with a pained roar, its massive body was sent flying away. The dragon overlord's pupil shrank. "It's you? What a foolish woman." Even though he had changed his appearance, Qin Yu's body was still contaminated with the imprisonment aura he had left in Mo Yuan's body. His identity was immediately seen through. The dragon overlord immediately guessed that Sophia's death was inextricably linked to Qin Yu. Although he wasn't sure of Sophia's identity, there was no doubt that she was strong. Otherwise, the dragon overlord wouldn't have agreed to a deal with her and let Qin Yu go. Thus, even though Qin Yu's strength wasn't that great, he still felt a trace of threat. Sophia was already dead, and he didn't want to follow in her footsteps because of Qin Yu. Bat-winged dragon, kill him! As a creature that stood at the top of the food chain, the Bat-winged Dragon King had a powerful self-healing ability. Its wings that had been destroyed by the Chaos Longboat could be regenerated in a short period of time. The damage caused by Qin Yu's punch just now had mostly recovered, but the pain caused by this punch had left a deep impression on the Bat-winged dragon. Hearing the order, it roared and glared at Qin Yu. It opened its mouth, but didn't spit out a dragon breath. Instead, it let out a strange and loud syllable. The surrounding heaven and earth rules began to change. Draconic secret art. This was a powerful technique inherited from the Bat-winged dragon bloodline. Only king-level dragons could awaken this power. Once used, it could directly interfere with the heaven and earth rules, greatly strengthening itself and suppressing the opponent. It could even borrow the power of the rules to directly kill the opponent. Through its connection with its master, the Bat-winged dragon sensed that the dragon overlord was a bit afraid of Qin Yu. Thus, it immediately decided to use its strongest strength to kill Qin Yu in the shortest time possible. Qin Yu's feet landed heavily. Wild power swept out in all directions, forcing back the pressure of the rules. The next moment, his figure shot out, piercing through space and leaving behind countless afterimages as he instantly appeared in front of the Bat-winged dragon. 5 elements samsara. 5-colored divine light erupted, forming a giant vortex that roared and spun, releasing a devouring power. The giant bat-winged dragon's eyes were cold. Its sharp claws smashed down heavily, and the spinning 5-colored vortex shook violently. It was actually shattered in one strike. Its own strength wasn't enough to do this. This was because the draconic secret art could change the rules of the world and obtain a powerful support. Perhaps it could be seen as an invisible domain of the Dragon Clan. Unless one's strength was strong enough to destroy this domain, they could only endure it passively. The giant dragon lord sneered. "Looks like this junior will be killed soon. And Mo Ming, you actually chose to ally with him. Interesting. To him, to him, to death, I to him. You to him. Ming's my to him, to his death." And Mo Ming spread his arms, and endless lightning erupted from his body. It quickly condensed on the surface of his body, turning into an exquisite and powerful lightning armor. "Dragon to me, you just said. I lost. He to say. Did you think that after losing the Batwing Dragon's help, I would fall into a weakened state?" The great dragon lord laughed heartily. During this process, the aura he released crazily skyrocketed. "For this day, I've bitterly waited and endured for hundreds of years. For tens of thousands of days and nights, I've never stopped thinking about how to tear your head off and have a taste of it. Today, you will definitely die." Bang! The leader of the Radiant Guard, Yu Ming, transformed into a bolt of thunder. He fought with the dragon overlord. Every time they collided, the world trembled. This was the strength they truly possessed. Qin Yu sensed from afar, his heart shaking. Even if these two weren't the strongest existences in this world, they absolutely stood at the peak. Luckily, he had chosen the safer method and joined forces with disciplined firmament. Otherwise, the consequences would have been inconceivable. Feeling the fierce battle between his master and Yu Ming, the Batwing Dragon's bloodthirst was aroused. After its sharp claws shattered the five-element vortex, it fiercely flapped its wings. Space instantly twisted, as if it were a sheet of white paper that was instantly crumpled. Countless layers of wrinkles appeared, imprisoning Chinyu within. Chinyu opened his mouth, and the draconic secret art appeared once more. In the distorted space, crimson-red crystals appeared, as if they had been heated in a furnace. The tips of these crystals were incomparably sharp, like sharp fangs. Chinyu frowned. The two hearts in his chest fiercely beat. His arms shook and space twisted, directly breaking apart. He lifted a hand and punched out. Pa! The several sharp crystals in front of him instantly shattered. Chinyu stepped forwards, escaping from them. Without looking down, Chinyu knew that the surface of his fist had been pierced and even his bones were exposed. But his figure didn't pause at all. He took another step forwards, the air crackling as he approached. The Batwing Dragon's eyes revealed a cold sneer. Melee combat? A weak little human, even if he were a body transformation cultivator, would still be unable to compare with its innately powerful mortal body. He was seeking death. Without stopping Chinyu from approaching, the Batwing Dragon reared back its head and roared. Its massive body rapidly shrank. After several breaths of time, it was only slightly taller than a normal human. Its eyes were filled with ridicule as it stared at Chinyu. Did he want to use his nimble body to fight with him? How naive and laughable. Its strong hind legs stomped down. The Batwing Dragon instantly accelerated. Like two bolts of lightning, it and Chinyu intersected. Their speed was far too fast, so fast that even those present couldn't clearly see what had happened just now. Chinyu looked down at his chest. Beneath his tattered black robes, crimson lines of blood were faintly visible. But this was because he had forcefully tightened his wounds. Otherwise, blood would have already gushed out. Across from him, a shallow fist mark had appeared on the Batwing Dragon's chest. The scales within had all shattered and faint traces of blood seeped out. But this time, the Batwing Dragon's wounds were rapidly recovering. When it stood up and turned around, it was as good as new. Lowly, weak human, you dare to fight me in melee combat? I will slowly tear your body to pieces. With a diabolical laugh, the Batwing Dragon's wings flapped, and it instantly arrived beside Chinyu. Bang! Bang! Both sides tangled together. Unlike the battle between Mo Ming and the Dragon Overlord, Chinyu and the Batwing Dragon fought in melee combat. This was far more brutal and direct. Every time they attacked, blood would flow and wounds would be left behind. In a short period of time, they fought countless times, and their bodies were riddled with wounds. If it were any other cultivator, they would have already collapsed on the spot. Bang! They separated once more. The Batwing Dragon couldn't help but frown. On the surface, it seemed as if it had the upper hand, and all the wounds it had suffered had been completely repaired. But this had already consumed a great deal of its strength. As for Chinyu, even though he was covered in wounds, and seemed as if he could be killed at any moment, he was still able to avoid being struck in a vital spot each time or choose to fight with his life on the line, forcing it to temporarily retreat and unable to kill him. It couldn't delay any longer. A cold light flashed in the Batwing Dragon's eyes. It decided to pay a price to kill Chinyu as soon as possible. If this human could cause its master to feel such fear, then there must be something terrifying about him. Delay for fear of changes. Bang! Both sides collided once more. The Batwing Dragon didn't retreat. Instead, its wings spread open and wrapped around Chinyu. Terrifying bone spikes jutted out from the edges of its wings, stabbing straight towards his back. At the same time, its two sharp claws no longer defended and stabbed towards Chinyu's abdomen. Humph! With the Batwing Dragon's powerful body, no matter how serious its mortal wounds were, it could still recover from them. But human cultivators absolutely didn't have this ability. Even if they were a body transformation cultivator, if they received injuries that surpassed their limits, they would still die. Injury in exchange for life. This was the Batwing Dragon's plan. Moreover, the entire situation was under its control. Yu couldn't avoid it and could only desperately fight it. And as expected, Yu, who was wrapped up by the wings and unable to retreat, roared out loud and punched out. Puff, puff! The bone spikes on the wings tore through Yu's flesh and mercilessly pierced through his chest. In the next moment, the batwing dragon's claws stabbed into Yu's abdomen, wildly twisting about without pause. A cruel smile appeared on its fierce dragon head. Its two hearts had been pierced through, and its organs had been twisted to mush. This sort of injury would cause it to enter a near-death state. It would need to immediately leave the battlefield and recuperate for a long time in order to restore itself. But Yu wasn't it, and he wouldn't have the chance to escape. Thus, he would soon die. Then, his mortal body would become food for the batwing dragon. It had been a long time since it had encountered such a powerful human body transformation cultivator. If it ate him and absorbed his strength, not only could the batwing dragon recover from its injuries, but it could even become stronger. Its thoughts raced. In its excited state, the batwing dragon didn't notice that Yu's punch had now turned into a finger. A body transformation cultivator? In terms of the ancient body, Yu certainly could be considered one. But in reality, this wasn't the case. Bang! Heaven point finger. One finger to shatter the vault of heaven. This was the strongest single target attack that Yu could release right now. The batwing dragon's tough scales were instantly smashed apart beneath this finger. Its flesh and blood split apart, and its hard bones were pierced through. Its contracting and expanding heart was exposed to the air. Yu's arm drilled into its chest. But at this time, he didn't attack. Instead, he thrust his hand into the side of that fiercely beating heart, revealing a taut mass of dark red flesh. The batwing dragon reared its head back and roared. Its body wildly swelled as it wanted to send Yu flying away. But with a loud roar, Yu's mortal body began to wildly grow. At the same time, his body tightened like it was cast from iron. He firmly imprisoned the batwing dragon's claws and wings in his flesh and blood, making it impossible for him to break free. And at this time, the hand that stabbed into the batwing dragon's body finally tore through the thick and tough flesh, revealing a crimson blood crystal. Without hesitation, Yu grasped it. With a roar, his fingers tightened and a wild strength gushed out. Gotcha! Gotcha! Cracks began to appear on the surface of the crystal. The batwing dragon's eyes revealed endless fear. It simply couldn't understand how Yu could find its true weakness. But this was no longer important. What was important was that if it didn't run away now, the life crystal would be destroyed and it would die. Roar! The bat-winged dragon roared madly, struggling with all its strength. With a mournful roar, all the scales covering the surface of its body fell off. Blood gushed out from the torn wounds, soaking its entire body in an instant and sprinkling down like rain. But now, the bat-winged dragon couldn't care about any of this. It controlled the torn scales and slashed at Yu like a blade. Puff! Puff! Thousands of wounds instantly covered Yu's body. His flesh and blood were torn apart, revealing thick and massive bones. Even Yu's face was covered in wounds, and both of his eyes had been cut blind. But his face remained as cold and callous as stone, not revealing the least bit of emotion. Pa! With a light sound, the bat-winged dragon's roar came to an abrupt end. The boundless aura that surged around its body began to rapidly dissipate like a punctured balloon. Its dragon eyes widened, filled with disbelief. Even now, it never imagined that it would be killed by a weak human. But this was already the truth. Bang! Chapter 890. The bat-winged dragon had died. The dragon overlord's pupils shrank, and a restless feeling rose in its heart. With a heaven-shaking roar, Mo Ming was sent flying backwards. Like a meteor wrapped in thunder, he smashed into the ground, and tens of thousands of bolts of lightning wildly spread outwards. He turned his head and locked his eyes on Yu. His cruel killing intent instantly froze the surrounding world. There was something strange about this human junior. He couldn't be allowed to stay here any longer. Humph! Your current opponent is me. With a cold shout, the thunder spear howled forwards. The dragon overlord frowned and roared again. However, what came out of his mouth was a pure dragon cry. The rules of the world rapidly changed in the waves of sound, like a ball of steel being wildly cut apart. The thunder spear shattered, but in the next moment, it reformed in Mo Ming's hand. He stepped forwards and shot into the skies, hurtling towards the dragon overlord once more. Qinyu looked up and said in a low voice, "I need some time." As he spoke, his figure flickered and he landed beside the bat-winged dragon's corpse. Sitting down cross-legged, Qinyu lifted a finger and pointed between the bat-winged dragon's eyebrows. After several breaths of time, a mournful dragon roar filled the air. In the surrounding air, gray fragments began to appear. They were pulled together by an invisible strength and fused together in midair, condensing into the bat-winged dragon's soul that hadn't been annihilated yet. It clearly retained a certain level of consciousness as it crazily struggled to rush towards Qinyu. As if he didn't see this at all, Qinyu lifted a hand and grasped forwards. The dragon's soul screamed miserably as it wildly collapsed and shrank, turning into a gray bead. Qinyu released his hand, and the bead floated in front of him. He took a deep breath and pressed his hands against the ground, causing the earth to rumble. Mud and stone violently tumbled about. Deep ravines appeared in the ground, connecting together to form lines filled with a strange aura. These lines were pitch black, as if they were dyed from the darkest night of winter. The lines spread outwards, constantly becoming complete. Finally, they formed the outline of a blooming flower. If one stood in the skies and looked down at the bat-winged dragon's corpse, they would discover that its massive body had become the stamen of this flower. The blood that flowed out of its body caused the stamen to appear scarlet. Contrasting with the surrounding petals that were as dark as the night, it suddenly added a gloomy and terrifying aura to the air. Today, Qinyu's goal in joining forces to punish the heavens wasn't to kill the bat-winged dragon in front of him. From start to finish, his goal had only been the dragon overlord. To Qinyu, this was only the beginning of his revenge. With a flick of his finger, the tip of his finger ruptured instantly. A few drops of blood flew out and landed on the corpse of the bat-winged dragon. It was like a terrifyingly strong acid that rotted away the scales and flesh of the corpse, leaving behind a few tiny bloody holes before fusing into its body. Then, the entire body of the bat-winged dragon began to rot and dissolve at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was like a piece of wax placed under the scorching sun, slowly but surely melting. The viscous juice mixed with flesh and blood flowed along the lines of the flowers, filling them one by one. The flower imprinted on the ground actually began to tremble slightly, as if it had a life of its own. It even let out a wheezing sound. Everything was so strange. The Dragon Lord, who was locked in battle with Mo Ming, suddenly felt a sense of fear. He suddenly lowered his head and stared at the rotting corpse of the bat-winged dragon, as well as the strange flowers around it, his face dark and gloomy. He didn't know what these flowers were, but he had an intense intuition that he absolutely couldn't allow Qinyu to continue. Otherwise, something incomparably terrifying would occur. Roar! The dragon overlord's thin and small body wildly expanded. Thick scales appeared, and a pair of dragon wings rapidly grew out from its back. Countless black bone spikes emerged, and two terrifying fangs drilled out from its mouth. It reared its head back and roared. At this moment, the dragon overlord had transformed into a half-obum and half-bat-winged dragon monster. His appearance was ferocious to the extreme. His wings fiercely flapped, and space wildly twisted. Indeed, his wings had also inherited the natural spatial talent of the bat-winged dragon. With a loud, crackling sound, the lightning that exploded was sealed away by layers upon layers of space. It was like dozens of locks had been added to it, sealing Mo Ming within. Shua! The dragon overlord turned around. Without hesitation, It sent out a dragon's breath towards Chinyu. The dragon breath was crimson, like a pillar of fire. Bang! There was a heaven-shaking explosion. Layers of distorted space were shattered. Mo Ming, whose body had turned into thunder, stepped out, his roars echoing through the heavens and earth. I said that your opponent is me. He spread out his arms, and a blinding light erupted. His entire body was like an extremely compressed ball of thunder that was about to explode. Endless power of thunder swept through the world like a raging flood, its speed unimaginable. Although it erupted later, it still managed to wrap around the dragon overlord before the dragon breath arrived. At this time, a thunder prison appeared between the heavens and earth, imprisoning the dragon overlord within. This thunder prison was formed by Mo Ming's source of thunder. Unless he was killed, there was no way he could escape. At the same time, strong winds howled in the highest heavens. Endless black clouds wildly gushed out from nothingness, weaving together into thick thunderclouds. Rumble, 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 bolts of thunder crashed down, constantly pouring into the thunder prison, strengthening, and increasing its might. Mo Ming, you want to stop me? You are courting death. The dragon overlord violently roared. His thick hind hooves stomped down, and his body instantly accelerated. He was like a rapidly moving mountain as he smashed into the thunder prison. The power of thunder immediately distorted, and a massive amount of it collapsed. Mo Ming lightly coughed before calming down. Chinyu, before you succeed, leave everything to me. Not only was his indifferent voice surging with a formidable self-confidence, but there was also a resolute conviction that he would perish together with his enemy. On the ground, Chinyu didn't look up. At this time, his entire mind had fused into the altar beneath him. That's right, with the Batwing Dragon's corpse as the core, this strange flower mark on the ground was the manifestation of a true altar. It came from a jade card that East Zhou Jolly had given to Chinyu before she left. It was different from what East Zhou Jolly had said. She had spent a great deal of time and still hadn't been able to fully perceive the secrets contained within the jade card. But the moment Chinyu obtained it, there was no longer any secrets in his eyes. It was a medium for inheritance. Or, to be more accurate, in the distant past, before a formidable existence perished, he had poured a wisp of his undying true spirit into it, forming this flower altar. He had placed his hopes on the people who came after him. During the sacrificial process, he would be able to offer her enough strength so that after countless years, she would be able to complete a different form of rebirth. This jade card had been passed down between the heavens and earth for countless years. The rich aura of time on it surpassed Chinyu's imagination. Even though he had fused with the jade egg and possessed a heaven-defying ability to see through all appearances and see through the essence of all things, he still wasn't able to completely see through the rich aura of time that wrapped around it. He could only faintly feel that at the core of this jade card, there was a faint fluctuation of thought that was slowly condensing. Perhaps the master who had left behind this jade card in the distant past was about to achieve his initial wish and use the sacrificial object to be reborn. If it weren't for killing the great dragon overlord, Chinyu wouldn't have been willing to use this jade token, because there was a faint fluctuation of thought in its core. It was clearly as weak as a tender blade of grass that could be plucked at any moment, but it caused him to feel an unknown tremble. It was like a life facing death without needing a reason. There was an instinctive rejection and fear. Now, Chinyu had already drawn out the outline of the altar. The corpse of the Batwing Dragon was the material for constructing the altar. Once its corpse was completely dissolved and all the flower petals were filled in, he would insert them into the bead condensed from remnant souls. Then, the altar would be completed. At that time, he could truly begin the sacrificial ritual. And the sacrificial object was naturally the dragon overlord that was silently imprisoned in the thunder prison. From the start, Chinyu never doubted the might of this flower altar. At this moment, he was even more confident in his abilities. Once the altar was completed, That would be the death of the dragon overlord. As if it could feel the threat of death so thick that it nearly condensed into essence, the dragon overlord in the thunder prison became increasingly crazed. It was like a mad bull, crazily rushing forwards without a care for exhaustion. Even if its scales were shattered and its flesh and blood were torn apart by lightning, it still didn't stop. Damn it! Damn it! Open for me! Open! Open! The dragon overlord's voice became increasingly loud. At the same time, the aura it released also became increasingly strong. Its eyes turned blood red, and all its emotions were swallowed up bit by bit. Finally, all that was left over was endless brutality. Roar! The dragon overlord reared its head back and roared. You forced me! You forced me! As the dragon overlord roared, the last trace of clarity in its eyes was completely annihilated by the blood-red color. His sharp claws tore down fiercely, shattering a large area of space. Following that, a hair-raising scene appeared. This shattered space was actually connected to an independent small world. Within it was a dark prison that imprisoned a large number of oboms. At this time, the dragon overlord opened its mouth and sucked in a deep breath at the shattered space. With miserable screams of despair, the opiums were sucked into its mouth. Kacha! Kacha! The dragon overlord chewed in great mouthfuls. The sound of bones breaking rang out without end. Thick and scarlet blood dripped down the corners of its mouth. The dragon overlord's aura suddenly rose once more. It was like a red-hot iron had been thrown into cold water, causing the entire world to wildly tumble about. Rumble, rumble. The spiritual strength of the heavens and earth boiled. The skies turned blood red, and the earth turned pitch black. Chilling winds howled in the air, bringing with them the aura of destruction and death. At this moment, it was like purgatory had arrived. All life in the world would fall into oblivion. Bang! The thunder prison wildly twisted. Trillions of arcs of lightning were annihilated. They didn't vanish, but were directly swallowed up by the dragon overlord. At this time, the dragon overlord was like a black hole monster, able to turn everything it touched into a part of its body. Bang, bang. Crazy collisions erupted again and again. The thunder prison rapidly shrank, and the dim source strength of thunder was rapidly consumed. Chapter 891. Within the twisting and shaking thunder cage, Mo Ming's enlarged face appeared. He stared at the completely enraged dragon overlord, his eyes strangely calm. All this time, I have viewed Qing Lin as my greatest enemy, because if it wasn't for his betrayal, what happened back then would not have happened. I prepared for hundreds of years, but he was killed before I arrived. I am disappointed, incomparably disappointed. I originally thought that I would no longer be able to personally take revenge, and that I would be too ashamed to see my old friends in the underworld. But later, I learned that the fear, despair, and pain they experienced before they died was all caused by you. Then, if I kill you, they should be able to forgive me for living for so many years. Mo Ming turned his head to look at the blood-red pillar of light that imprisoned the Chaos Longboat. A trace of guilt and apology appeared in his eyes, but he soon regained his calm. Kacha! A light sound rang out from within the thunder cage. Whether it was the roars of the dragon overlord or the rumbling thunder, nothing could cover it up. Within the Chaos Longboat, Mo Yuan, who had been nervously watching the battle and staring at the thunder cage, suddenly felt a pain in her chest. This feeling came from her bloodline, causing fear and sorrow to surge from the depths of her heart. No! She screamed, tears blurring her vision. In the next moment, a wild explosion of thunder filled the entire field of vision. It was like a blazing sun had exploded at this moment. Trillions of bolts of thunder wildly poured into the thunder cage, causing it to almost instantly solidify. Its color rapidly darkened until it was as black as ink. Mo Ming's aura completely disappeared at this time. This was because he had completely fused into this endless thunder. In this moment, he had ignited everything he had, releasing a strength that far surpassed his limits. This could be regarded as a terrifying trump card, but the price was far too tragic. Once the power of this thunder was exhausted, Mo Ming would forever disappear. His body and soul would be destroyed without a trace left in this world. Father, father, tears streamed down Mo Yuan's face. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The surrounding light guards widened their eyes in shock, sorrow, and sorrow. They had followed their leader for many years and naturally knew what his eruption meant. Mo Ming had given up his life. He had used his life as a bargaining chip to seal off any possibility of the dragon overlord making a breakthrough. Since it had begun, there was no turning back. Mo Ming was destined to die. However, the leader's death could not be without value. The dragon lord had to die. The chaos longboat trembled violently. Countless nodes on its surface lit up. However, there was no telling what method Obum in the king's city had used, but the confinement of the bloody pillar of light was so strong that it was impossible to break out. The attempts of the bright light guards had all ended in failure. Thus, their only hope was Qinyu. All eyes were on him. You must succeed, you must succeed. If they could not kill the giant dragon lord, then the silent Ming leader's decision to sacrifice his life would be meaningless. Qinyu could sense the changes occurring within the thunder cage. He let out a deep breath and continued to urge the altar to form. Mo Ming had used his life as the price to buy time for him. No matter what angle he considered it from, Qinyu wouldn't allow failure. An hour later, the corpse of the giant bat-winged dragon had completely rotted and dissolved. The flowing scarlet liquid filled the entire flower. Qinyu lifted a hand and pressed down. The condensed soul bead instantly fused into it. Roar! At this moment, everyone could hear the roar of the bat-winged dragon's soul. But this time, there was no cruelty or hatred in its roar. There was only endless fear and despair. Even when it was killed by Qinyu, it hadn't shown such a reaction. It was hard to imagine just what it was experiencing right now. But without a doubt, this was something even more terrifying than death. Within the thunder cage, the giant dragon lord had lost all reason and had become a monster that only knew slaughter and destruction. At this time, a trace of clarity appeared in the depths of his eyes. He seemed to have sensed something. His huge eyes were filled with fear and despair, but there was also a hint of relief mixed in. The giant dragon lord lowered his head and looked at Qinyu on the ground. And at this time, Qinyu also looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, there seemed to be a pause. Then, Qinyu flipped his hand, and a jade card appeared in his palm. Bang! On the ground, the flower altar trembled. The entire earth rumbled with it. A rich blood-red light shot into the skies. Between the heavens and earth, a blood-red flower slowly spun in the air. Every petal was incomparably clear. If one looked down, one could even see the fine veins that wove together on their surface. Then, in the next moment, time and space seemed to come to a standstill, as if some unknown existence had pressed a pause button. When this strange feeling disappeared, the thunder cage still existed. But the giant dragon lord that was trapped within had disappeared. Between the heavens and earth, the blood-red flower had already closed. From its blooming state, it had turned into a flower bud. Bang! Bang! A low and deep sound came from the flower bud. Small bumps constantly appeared on its surface. Faintly, one could hear a pained, unwilling, and despairing roar coming from within. This voice was the giant dragon lord. Within the chaos longboat, all the bright light guards were filled with shock. From start to finish, none of them had seen how this strange flower had swallowed the giant dragon lord. The entire process was that it had appeared, it had spun, and then it had suddenly closed into a flower bud, and then everything had ended. But soon, they no longer thought about this. The world was so vast. There would always be mysteries that they had yet to touch upon. The giant dragon lord had been killed. That was the key. Everything else wasn't important. The blood-red flower that had closed into a flower bud was like an illusory shadow that quickly dissipated. Then on the ground, the sticky liquid that flowed from the marks dried up and solidified. A gust of wind blew past, stirring up dust in the air. The marks completely disappeared, as if they had never appeared in this world. The giant dragon lord, a super expert of the Obum race, had also disappeared. Although no one had seen his final fate, there was no doubt that he would never return. The jade tablet in Qin Yu's hand suddenly emitted a wave of warmth. Then a power overflowed from it, directly fusing into his body. It was as if this was the reward that the jade tablet had given him after he had sacrificed himself. But at this moment, there was no joy on Qin Yu's face. He frowned, his thoughts racing. Suddenly, he made an unexpected move. His figure flickered, and he arrived beside the thunder cage. He lifted his hand and pressed down, channeling the power of the jade tablet into it. A shocked thought came from within. Qin Yu lightly said, "The giant dragon lord was personally killed by me. This is not in accordance with our previous agreement. Take it as my compensation." As he finished speaking, he turned and left, chasing after Xiang Shui and the black mud monster. It was unknown whether it was because of the giant dragon lord's death, but the blood-red pillar of light from the great king's city had suddenly vanished. The chaos longboat regained its freedom. Light flashed, and a large number of radiant guards howled out, arriving beside the thunder cage. Mo Yuan stood in front of everyone. She wiped away the tears on her face, her eyes filled with excitement. Endless power of thunder condensed, revealing Mo Ming's figure. His face was deathly pale, and his aura was incomparably weak. But compared to death, this was the best result that surpassed all expectations. "Father," Mo Yuan stepped forward. Mo Ming sighed. He glanced in the direction that Qin Yu had left. This time, he owed the other a favor of his life. He took a deep breath and gathered his thoughts. He said in a low voice, "We will leave immediately. With the giant dragon lord dead, the Obum race would inevitably go crazy. They could not stay in Little Fragrant Mountain for long. As for the mysterious expert that had laid down the Tai Azure Gold Array, he inexplicably thought of Qin Yu. Although he did not know whether or not it was him, it was definitely related. He believed that there was no need for him to worry about them. The chaos longboat trembled and melted into space, vanishing from sight. When Qin Yu arrived, Xiang Shui and the black sludge monster were still in a deadlock in their battle. Has the giant dragon lord died? The black sludge monster glanced at Qin Yu, its voice unexpectedly calm. Then it looked at Xiang Shui. "Xiang Shui, you do have a reason to hate me. But let me remind you, it is best for you to understand what truly happened in the past and determine just who your true enemy is." The black sludge monster took a step back. Its massive body exploded, and then all of its aura vanished from his senses. Qin Yu could sense the direction this person had left in. But at this time, Xiang Shui was gasping for breath, and her complexion was cloudy and uncertain. She didn't seem to have any intention of chasing after him, so he didn't do anything. "It's him. Could it really be him?" Xiang Shui whispered. Qin Yu waited for a moment. He coughed and said, "We must leave as soon as possible." Xiang Shui looked up, her expression unexpectedly calm. "Okay," but Qin Yu could feel that beneath her calm exterior, there was a hidden volcano of emotions that would erupt at any moment. Everyone had their own secrets. Since Xiang Shui didn't want to say anything, Qin Yu naturally wouldn't ask. Whoosh, whoosh, the two of them rapidly flew away. What happened in Little Fragrant Mountain, from start to finish, didn't last for too long. But the Obum race had paid an incomparably heavy price for it. The giant dragon lord, the spiritual leader of the Obum race, had died here. The royal king city's city lord, the noble bloodline Sophia, had died in an assassination. An important figure of the fallen humanity, Qing Lin, had perished. The 30,000 black-armored Obums controlled by the Aurora family had been buried with him. All of these events stabbed at the nerves of the Obum race. War was unavoidable. At the back of Little Fragrant Mountain, where the territories of the two great races were separated, small-scale conflicts had already begun to erupt between the humans and the Obum army. Everyone in the known knew that the prelude to the Great War was slowly beginning. But none of this had anything to do with Qinyu. As one of the main fuses of this war, he had completely hidden himself away after sneaking into the underground mines of Wuling Fort. Everyone he came into contact with and the Obum had either died or thought he had died. Chapter 892. There was light rain and no wind today. A small green nunnery was half hidden among the weeping willows. The stone slabs on the ground had been stepped on by countless people, and the corners were polished to a mirror-like texture. The teacher, who had a square appearance and an old-fashioned aura, sat cross-legged on a praying mat made of golden jade grass. His eyes swept across the people listening to him solemnly, and he spoke at a moderate pace. Everyone knows that only by stepping into the godly state can one become extraordinary and truly achieve something. But what is the godly state, and how many people can truly understand it? He looked at the desire in the eyes of the people listening to him, paused slightly, and continued. In fact, the definition of the godly state has been constantly revised and changed over the countless years. What I said today is only my own understanding. You can listen to it, but don't keep in mind, because it may be right for me, but may not be for you. The teacher's body became even straighter, and his voice was low and solemn. All living beings in the world, except for a few gifted ones, begin the process of death from the day they are born. At the end of the day, everyone cultivates for the sake of pursuing immortality. The path to immortality is bitter and difficult. It is long like thousands of soldiers and horses fighting for a canoe. The slightest carelessness will cause you to fall, and half a lifetime of hard work will be in vain. Only by achieving the godly state can one condense the rules of heaven and earth, turn it into one's own godly imprint, and borrow the power of heaven and earth to protect one's era forever. Therefore, for us cultivators, the godly state is a milestone in climbing the godly state. Only by reaching this realm can one truly fulfill the original wish of stepping into the cultivation world, to not be limited by lifespan, to be able to cross endless time and coexist with the sun and moon. The teacher slowed down his speech. Perhaps you are not interested in these, and more interested in knowing how to break through to the godly state. In fact, there is no fixed rule for this path. In billions of years, there are thousands of ways to achieve the godly state. Some people cultivate silently, step by step, and with deep accumulation, they finally trigger a qualitative change and condense the godly imprint. Some people comprehend the heaven and earth and have always been unknown. Once they comprehend the godly state, they can add rules to their bodies in a few steps and achieve the godly state. There's also a powerful bloodline hidden in the human body. After being tempered and continuously stimulated, one can use the bloodline in the body to forcefully shake the heavens and the earth, triggering the resonance of the heavens and the earth. One can also obtain the imprint of a god. In my eyes, there are only two levels of cultivation in the world, below and above the god realm. If one did not become a god, everything was fabricated and not worth mentioning at all. Be it divine abilities or magic treasures or tools, they were all just small daos in the human world. Those who wish to become gods must remember one thing: pursue the limits of the world, and when you reach a certain limit, take one more step and you'll become a god. 3 days later, the lecture finally came to an end. Qinyu lowered his head and thought for a moment. Then, he stood up and left with everyone else. In his mind, the teacher's words kept echoing: pursue the world's peak. This sentence seemed to be general, but it revealed a fact. There were countless paths to the godly realm, and so long as one had the perseverance to try, there was a possibility of success. Then, what were his paths to the godly state? Fellow Taoist, please wait. A warm and honest voice echoed out from behind him. Qinyu stood still and turned around. A cultivator smiled and bowed. My name is Yangdinghua. Seeing that fellow Taoist comes here alone every time, I wonder if you would be willing to join our discussion group? The group is made up of cultivators from various monasteries. Everyone can exchange their experiences with each other, and there will always be some benefits. Yu shook his head. He said, I'm used to being alone and am not good at socializing with others. I appreciate your kindness, but I will bid my farewells. After speaking, he turned and left. Several people walked to young Dingwa's side, their complexions unkind. Humph! He doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Brother Yang personally invited him, but he directly refused. Such an eccentric person who only knows how to build a cart behind closed doors. Even if he has some talent, it is impossible for him to succeed in reaching his current level. Great waves wash away sand. Eventually, there will be those who fall behind. Only then will a golden jade emerge. This person has severed his own path to the great Tao. So why waste time on him? Yang Dinghua smiled and nodded. He looked at Qin Yu's fading back, a helpless look in his eyes. This person was actually so vigilant. It was truly a pity that he didn't give him a chance. Qin Yu could clearly hear the cold words coming from behind him. But his expression remained calm, and there wasn't even the slightest change in his eyes. Everyone wanted to break into the divine realm and stand out from the endless sea of mayflies. They wanted to leap out of the sea and transform into a Kuan Peng, soaring through the highest heavens for 100,000 miles. In order to accumulate one's own foundation, not only did one need patience and talent, but they also needed enough luck. Otherwise, a single mistake could lead to death. How could it be as quick and easy as robbing others? However, there were trillions of lives in this world, and each person had their own path. Qin Yu didn't judge them. As long as they didn't involve him, he wouldn't interfere. The road was chosen by oneself. As for the sweet and sour results, only they could taste them. Hey, that Yang Dinghua, just now, is quite famous in the surrounding monasteries. Why didn't you agree when he personally invited you? Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. He didn't stop and continued to walk outwards. If it weren't for him expressing his respect to the monastery's teachers, he would have long since teleported away. Hey, a woman jumped out and blocked Qin Yu's path. Her petite body couldn't even reach his shoulder, and her eyes were as round as a little tiger's, filled with ill intent. It seemed that if Qin Yu continued to ignore her, she would jump up and bite him. Qin Yu stopped and frowned. How I choose has nothing to do with you. For better or worse, we could be considered classmates, and we've listened to several teachers' lessons together. Is there a need to keep people at a distance of 1,000 miles? The woman bit her lips, her eyes filled with dissatisfaction. Qin Yu said, keep a bit further away and I won't refuse you. As he finished speaking, he turned and walked away. After leaving the range of the monastery's blue stone slabs, the surrounding space twisted and he vanished from sight. The woman stamped her feet in anger. She glared at the place where he disappeared and muttered something under her breath. Xiao Yu, is it the person you always mentioned, the very cold fellow? Besides his appearance being SOSO, there isn't anything special about him at all. Is he really worth your attention? A thin youth walked over and grinned. Lei Xiaoyu glanced at him. You don't understand. A young woman walked over, her long skirt fluttering in the wind. She covered her mouth and smiled. Xiaoyu said that you don't understand, so don't interrupt. In any case, I feel that this person gives off a sense of security. He should have a bit of background. The thin youth sneered. So what? If you can't reach the divine realm, you are nothing but an ant. His eyes turned. How about we make a bet? As long as Xiaoyu reveals even the tiniest bit of information about my family background, this person will stick to me like a dog's skin plaster. I won't be able to drive him away. Chao Yaozong, shut up for me. If even the tiniest bit of information is leaked out, I won't forgive you. Seeing Lei Xiaoyu fly into a rage, the thin youth shrunk his neck. He wasn't angry, only chuckling twice before dropping the subject. The woman beside him tried to smooth things over. Xiaoyu, don't be angry. Even if this person is a stone, sooner or later he will know how good you are. I heard that several days ago, a new auction house opened. The owner's background is quite great, and they collected many good things. How about we go take a look? Lei Xiaoyu shook her head. I'm not going. I want to go home and cultivate. I'll be leaving first. After leaving the distorted space, Qin Yu boarded the carriage. Seeing his gloomy complexion, the driver, Xiang Shui, covered her mouth and laughed. What is it? Did you run into that little girl again today? Qin Yu, I really suspect that you weren't telling the truth at the beginning. Otherwise, why would that little girl chase after you every time? Could it be that you took advantage of her, and now you don't want to admit it? Stop talking nonsense. Let's go home. Qin Yu's impatient voice sounded out from the carriage. Xiang Shui giggled. She flicked her whip, and the old horse she bought at the market snorted. Then, she pulled the carriage into the city. Within the carriage, Qin Yu rubbed his temples, a helpless look on his face. His connection with Lei Xiaoyu was a completely accidental result. At the beginning, this little girl seemed to have a conflict with her family and had deliberately thrown off the bodyguards that were secretly following her. Afterwards, she had been targeted by several people who were blind enough to think that she was a fat sheep. At the time, Qin Yu simply didn't want to care about this spoiled and willful young miss of an extraordinary background. But those people were really blind. As soon as they saw Qin Yu, they didn't say anything and simply surrounded him. Qin Yu had no choice but to act. After sending away those people, he turned and left. He didn't even hear what Lei Xiaoyu shouted behind him. Afterwards, that surnamed Lei girl became a shadow that he couldn't shake off. Wherever he went, she would follow. He took a deep breath and suppressed these irrelevant thoughts. His expression became tranquil once more as he focused on proper business. Over the last 2 months, he had visited all of the surrounding monasteries, large and small. The mystery he met today could be considered one of the highest standards. Of course, Qin Yu wouldn't truly believe everything he said. At the very least, what this mister said about being able to coexist with the sun and moon after reaching the divinity realm was clearly wrong. Although Qin Yu hadn't stepped into the divinity realm, his experience and level meant that he was destined to know far more than ordinary cultivators, let alone a divinity realm existence. Even existences that were countless times stronger than them couldn't truly transcend the limits of eternal life. Otherwise, where did the marks left behind in the jade egg come from? In order to have the qualifications to leave behind their own immortal mark in the world, one that wouldn't wither even after being washed over by time, just what sort of boundary was needed to accomplish this? Qin Yu didn't know, but he knew that even the dragon overlord that had been killed off was 108,000 miles away from this boundary. As for the dragon overlord, he was definitely at the divinity realm. Moreover, he was an incomparably powerful figure. But there was one thing that Qin Yu could confirm. There were many, many ways to break into the divinity realm. And when breaking through, with every additional condition that was met, the divine spirit mark that was condensed would have one more halo than others. Not only were these halos beautiful to look at, but more importantly, they could allow a cultivator to control them. They would become more powerful, and their future prospects would become increasingly vast. Chapter 893. It wasn't just empty words. The halos surrounding the God Spirit mark really represented supreme glory. Basically, a 3-ring God Spirit realm expert wouldn't associate with a 1-ring God Spirit mark, and a 5-ring God Spirit mark wouldn't put a 3-ring God Spirit mark in their eyes. As for the 7-ring God Spirit mark, or higher, those were legendary existences. Each of them had a great background and a great destiny. They were the favored children of heaven and earth. As long as they lived peacefully and didn't get killed, they were destined to have great achievements in the future. According to Xiang Shui, the most powerful God Spirit mark she had ever seen in her life had 6 halos of glory shining around the God Spirit mark. It was so bright that it could blind a person's eyes. At that time, when she faced an original God Realm expert, she was treated with great respect. She almost had the chance to stand on equal footing with him. This was because the God Realm cultivators of this world understood that only 5-ring God Spirit Realm experts and above had the chance to become original God Realm experts. And the more halos of glory one had, the more potential they had. After Qin Yu heard this news, he was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. He now knew what kind of oppression he had felt when he formed the immortal body of the ancient race. That was the God Realm Barrier, also known as the Heaven and Earth Dragon Gate. As long as he succeeded, he could trigger the feedback of heaven and earth to condense the God Spirit mark and directly reach the God Realm. Qin Yu didn't doubt that with the immortal body of the ancient race and his status as the king of the ancient race, he could easily break through the Heaven and Earth Dragon Gate. Luckily, he had hesitated at the time and restrained his strength. Otherwise, if he condensed the God Spirit mark of the ancient race, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Sure enough, cultivation was the best. Only a competent guide was enough. If he climbed blindly, who knew when he would suffer a great loss? Thus, Qin Yu listened to Xiang Shui's suggestion. He entered various monasteries and did his best to fill in the blanks of his future cultivation. After these 2 months of study, Qin Yu constantly sorted out his body. He gradually had an idea of how to condense the God Spirit mark. Letting out a breath, Qin Yu muttered, "After listening to a few more lectures, I might be able to start and try my first attempt." The carriage entered the city. This was an ordinary human city. There were many cultivators in the city, but those that could truly be considered masters, in Qin Yu's eyes, were at most half of them. The residence was a simple, small courtyard. Before the carriage even got close, the courtyard gate was already open from the inside, and Ku running over to lead the horse. Qin Yu got off the car and nodded at him. Without saying a word, he went straight to the door. He had some ideas in his mind and was anxious to verify them. Looking at his retreating figure, and Ku's face was filled with admiration. For Sir to have his current strength, it is definitely not a coincidence. This kind of self-control and hard work is not something an ordinary person can compare to. Xiang Shui gave him a slap on the forehead and curled her lips. He has already gone far away. Who are you flattering to? Humph humph, that brat Qin Yu. He lives his days so tight it's like there's a dog chasing after him. He really doesn't have any fun at all. And Ku smiled, not saying a single word. Although she hadn't seen Xiang Shui fight before, it wasn't hard to guess just how strong she was from her attitude towards Qin Yu. Sister Xiang Shui, I'm going to bathe the horse first. The wine it wanted to drink is gone again. We have to go out and get more wine later. Otherwise, it'll throw a tantrum before dinner time. Xiang Shui waved her hand. Go, go. She turned and returned to her room. And Ku patted the old horse's somewhat withered fur. Let's go, Uncle Horse. You've worked hard pulling the carriage these past 2 times. Now it's my turn to serve you. The old horse snorted and allowed Ku to help it get off the carriage. Then it walked towards the stable with its head held high, as if this were a matter of course. And Ku helplessly smiled. He didn't know just what the Lord saw in this old horse. It was clearly so old that it couldn't even walk, but it was so difficult to serve. It didn't eat what other horses ate, and it wanted wine and meat for every meal. The meat wasn't too picky, but the wine couldn't be fooled. And Ku had to spend a great deal of effort to figure out what it liked. Sometimes, and Ku couldn't help but think that this old horse had some great background. But no matter how much he observed it, he didn't obtain any harvests, so he tossed this thought to the back of his mind. 10,000 miles away, Rock City was an astonishingly large city with millions of cultivators gathered here. It was the most dazzling pearl in the surrounding area for hundreds of thousands of miles. The City Lord Mansion held all authority. Although the City Lord was nominally loyal to the royal family, he was actually a local tyrant. Today, after the City Lord finished handling his daily chores, he took out a steaming hot towel and placed it on his face. He closed his eyes and asked, "How has Xiaoyu been these past few days?" A neat and tidy steward with a mellow and restrained aura knew what the City Lord was asking. He smiled and said, "Miss has been cultivating very seriously recently. It's just that her personality is still a bit jumpy. She has been constantly moving between several nunneries and hasn't made a decision yet." The City Lord fell silent for a moment. He pulled down the towel on his face and lightly said, "Have you investigated?" The steward had a serious expression. "Yes." He didn't say anything else. He took out a jade slip and offered it with both hands. Lei Qianjun received it and probed it with his divine sense. After several breaths of time, he nodded. "I understand." The steward knew that it was time for him to leave. He respectfully bowed and took several steps back before leaving. After leaving the door, the steward straightened up. It was only now that he discovered that the city lord was very tall. His eyes were slightly drooping as he looked down at the two black-clothed cultivators in front of him. He ordered, "Keep a close watch on him. If you discover that this person has any ill intentions towards the miss, kill him without mercy." "Yes." The two black-clothed cultivators bowed and quietly left. The steward folded his hands together. He looked up at the sky and squinted his eyes. The city lord had said that he understood, but that didn't mean that he would drop the matter. Rather, he wanted him to continue monitoring them and keep everything under control. The story of a princess falling in love with a gray boy. Haha, perhaps such a thing really did exist. But at the very least, the city lord wouldn't allow it. The steward straightened his back, and the swift and fierce aura that appeared just now vanished like a flash in the pan. He turned and stood outside the door, closing his eyes. Within the room, Xiang Shui opened her eyes. She glanced to the side, a cold chill appearing in the depths of her eyes. The two people who had been monitoring them had actually returned. If it weren't for Qin Yu telling her not to complicate matters, she would have already acted and cut off their heads. Who could it be? After they entered the human territory, they had maintained a very low profile and hadn't done anything that aroused suspicion. Her thoughts raced. Then, Xiang Shui thought of Lei Xiaoyu who chased after Qin Yu all day. Her lips curved up in a strange smile. Was it because of her? That's right, that little girl seemed to have an extraordinary background. What was this? The hardest thing to endure was the grace of a beauty, or was it the calamity of love? Hee. Men really couldn't be too handsome. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if they attracted the attention of bees and butterflies. As she thought of another topic to tease Qin Yu about, Xiang Shui closed her eyes in satisfaction. She temporarily gave up on finding trouble with these two people. Now, what she was most curious about was when Qin Yu would begin to knock on the Heaven and Earth Dragon Gate and reach the Divine Realm. Xiang Shui didn't doubt that Qin Yu would successfully knock on the Heaven and Earth Dragon Gate. What she wanted to know was how many rings of glory Qin Yu could condense. Xiang Shui believed that he would at least have 5 rings. After all, he was a powerful freak that had killed a dragon overlord before he reached the Divine Realm. After listening to another 3 lectures from Xuan, Qin Yu unsurprisingly ran into Lei Xiaoyu each time. Every time, Lei Xiaoyu would fly into a rage, but she wouldn't grow impulsive. Every time, she would approach him on her own initiative. Qin Yu thought for a moment and decided not to go out to listen to the lectures. It wasn't that he was afraid of this little girl, but that he discovered that listening to the lectures was no longer of any use to him. Although saying this was a bit disdainful of those cultivators who tirelessly chased after Xuan year after year, in front of the Qin Yu who possessed the jade embryo egg, all of them present were nothing but trash. Qin Yu decided to begin. Besides the ancient immortal body, this would be his second road to reach the Divine Realm. On this road, he chose the blue finger. After summing up the lectures of the many teachers, Qin Yu made a simple summary of the road to breaking into the Divine Realm. The blue finger could be considered a violent path. With an extremely powerful attack, one could forcefully shake the world's rules and obtain their recognition and feedback, using this to condense a divine spark mark. Of course, Qin Yu only wanted the power of the blue finger to smoothly shake the world. He wouldn't actually condense a divine spark mark. Qin Yu went into seclusion. With the help of the jade embryo egg's super strong abilities, he began to probe and perceive the power of the blue finger, striving to reach the Divine Realm. Then, Lei Xiaoyu went crazy. She discovered that the hateful Qin Yu had disappeared without warning. Only cultivators who sensed the Heaven and Earth Dragon sect would give up everything and wander around the various monasteries, seeking a turning point to break through. If there were no accidents, they would continue to stay here until they had confidence in themselves. Only then would they quietly leave and enter seclusion. But Qin Yu hadn't appeared for long. So why did he disappear? Was he hiding from me? Lei Xiaoyu couldn't accept this. Humph. If you want to hide, I won't let you. Lei Xiaoyu secretly mobilized her strength, casting a net in all the surrounding monasteries. As long as Qin Yu appeared, he wouldn't be able to escape. But as the days passed, there was no news. Lei Xiaoyu first gritted her teeth, but gradually, she became listless. At the start, she didn't have any other intentions. She just wanted to thank Qin Yu for saving her. But afterwards, Qin Yu's attitude stirred up a rebellious mentality in Lei Xiaoyu. The more you ignore me, the more I want to approach you. Once you know I'm fine, I will turn around and leave without hesitation. I will let you experience what it means to be sad. But Qin Yu didn't give her this chance. Instead, Lei Xiaoyu felt a deep emptiness in her heart. She rubbed her eyes and resisted the urge to cry. Qin Yu, you smelly bastard, you better not let me find you, otherwise I will teach you a lesson. In a flash, 3 months passed. Qin Yu opened his eyes, a happy look on his face. He had now thoroughly comprehended the blue finger. Although he hadn't tested it yet, he was confident in its might. He stood up, and his figure flickered, vanishing from his room. When he reappeared, he was outside the city. Sweeping out with his divine sense, Qin Yu didn't discover anything wrong. He lifted a hand and pointed out. Rumble, rumble. The spiritual strength of the heavens and earth boiled, vast and mighty like a sea. But at this moment, Qin Yu frowned. He could feel an invisible suppression coming from the world. Although it was intense, the feeling Qin Yu felt was just a little bit lacking. It was this difference that caused Qin Yu to realize that his plan to use the blue finger to open up a second road to the divine realm wasn't feasible for the time being. With a flick of his sleeves, he dispersed the strength of the blue finger, not allowing it to crash down. Qin Yu's face darkened. It shouldn't be like this. He had already perceived the strength of the blue finger to a certain limit, so it should be simple for him to break through to the divine realm. Just where was the problem? Chapter 894. After returning to their residence outside the city, Xiang Shui gave Qin Yu another lesson regarding the carrying capacity of the soul. After cultivating to this day, you should understand that the soul is the foundation of all living beings. It is far more precious than the mortal body. When one's strength reaches a certain degree and they can sense the existence of the heaven and earth dragon gate, they will need to open up a path of their own and open the door to the divinity realm. For example, the soul is the foundation and the road of the divine Tao is the palace above. Only when the foundation is solid enough and large enough can the palace be built into a sturdy and beautiful palace. Of course, strictly speaking, this analogy isn't particularly appropriate. You can understand it this way for now. No matter what kind of road of the divine Tao you conclude, in the end it must be built upon your own soul. With the intensity of your soul, it shouldn't be a problem for you to simultaneously support 3 or more roads of the divine Tao. But it is clear that there are some circumstances that I don't know about. Xiang Shui's eyes shined as she looked at Qin Yu. If you are willing to be honest with me and tell me about your situation, I don't mind patiently listening and helping you come up with a plan. Qin Yu frowned, not speaking. What was there to be honest with? Let alone Xiang Shui. It was impossible for him to tell anyone else. He had far too many secrets on his body, so many that he felt apprehensive just thinking about them. If he were to expose 1 or 2 of them, that would be a fatal matter. What Xiang Shui said should be correct. The problem lay in the carrying capacity of his soul. As for the reason, Qin Yu first thought of the little blue lamp. Even now, its existence was filled with inconceivable mysteries to Qin Yu. As for the other reason, Qin Yu thought of the sun and moon force field in his soul space. Although he didn't fully understand its function, the power of the sun and moon force field was beyond doubt. Qin Yu rubbed his temples and let out a long breath. He ignored Xiang Shui's expectant gaze and directly said, "What methods do you have?" Xiang Shui curled her lips. "There are many methods, but I don't know the specific reason, so I can only give you the most difficult suggestion. She stretched out a hand, her palm facing upwards. For example, this palm is your soul. Right now, it is too small and isn't enough for you to open a road to the divine Tao. But as long as it is like this, as she spoke, she spread her fingers apart. If your soul is powerful, your carrying capacity will naturally increase and the difficulties will be easily solved. But don't say that I didn't warn you. Treasures that strengthen the soul, no matter what realm, are incomparably precious treasures. Not to mention, you've already reached the level where you can sense the heaven-earth dragon gate. It's extremely difficult to raise the strength of your soul. Qinyu nodded. What you say makes sense. Xiang Shui turned to look at Qinyu and then back at him. She blinked, a bit puzzled. She thought for a moment and said, "You don't seem worried at all?" Meeting her eyes, Qinyu smiled. He nodded in acknowledgement, but didn't say anything. This was because at this time, Qinyu had already thought of a way to find powerful soul treasures. Riverwater City was where Qinyu and the others were currently living. It wasn't large in scale and could barely be considered a human city with half a master. The only half-master was an old man. He wore tattered clothes all day and dragged a broken leg as he leaned against the roadside. He looked exactly like a miserable beggar. If someone gave them food, they would take a bite. If they were ignored, they would curl up into a ball and sleep under the sun. The disheveled old man had stayed in the city for many years. He was a very lazy person and basically never left this street. Many of the residents on the street had already recognized him. It was said that some years ago, a rich family pitied him and wanted to help him heal his broken leg before giving him a living. But the disheveled old man flatly refused. He shook his head and said that he was already very satisfied with his current life and didn't want to change anything. Now that this was mentioned, those who knew the disheveled old man couldn't help but curse that he deserved it and that he was the one who brought this miserable situation upon himself. The disheveled old man didn't care about these rumors at all. He lived his life as he should and was quite happy. On this day, it was drizzling. The gloomy sky was accompanied by gusts of wind, and there was a biting chill to it. The people on the street were in a hurry, most of them unwilling to stay outside in this weather. The disheveled old man laid down on a rock in satisfaction, allowing the rain to wash over him and wash away the filth on his body. The muddy water flowed down, dyeing the puddles of water on the ground black. A few horse carriages stopped far away, and a few people alighted one after another. Many people on the street and behind the windows of the buildings on the left and right had looks of awe on their faces. Although it seemed like they were walking on the street, there was a thin line between their feet and the ground. There was no way their boots would get wet. The thin lines of rain that fell from above seemed to have hit an invisible barrier as they slid to the sides. "Old sir, we meet again. To think that you would still be here after so many years," an old man with white hair and beard said with a hint of respect in his tone. The expressions of the few young men behind him changed slightly as they frowned at the disheveled old man. However, no matter how they looked at him, he was just a dirty beggar. Because he hadn't washed up all year round, the stench from his body was indeed a little pungent after being splashed by the rain. Two of the girls could not help but cover their mouths and noses with disgust in their eyes. The disheveled old man's eyes opened a slit, and his face was filled with wrinkles as he sized up the old man. "Who are you? Leave if you have nothing to do. Don't disturb me while I'm bathing." At that moment, the few calm young men could not help but have a change in their expressions as they looked at him with unfriendly gazes. The old man with white hair and beard raised his hand to stop the disciples behind him while maintaining his smile. "Old sir, it's normal for you to not remember me, since you observe all sorts of people every day. 40 years ago, I asked you a question at this place." He paused for a moment and reminisced. "At that time, I didn't quite understand your answer and thought that I had gone mad to believe your words. But later on, I found out that your answer was truly invaluable advice that allowed me to achieve what I have today." The old man cupped his fists. "The reason why I'm here today is firstly to thank you for answering my question back then. Secondly, I wish to invite you to leave with me. I've already obtained permission to build a new nunnery. If you're willing, old sir, you'll be half the owner of this nunnery." At that moment, the disciples behind the old man were truly shocked as their eyes widened in disbelief. The fact that he was recognized and had the right to build a nunnery was proof of his teacher's strength. Even a few days ago, when facing the Lord of Wreck Journey who had received them, the true owner of this region, his teacher had not been this respectful. Just who in the world was this old man? To think that he was worthy of such treatment from his teacher. At that moment, the rain was heavier than before. The dense raindrops formed long lines that struck the disheveled old man's face mercilessly. He could not help but squint his eyes as though he was sizing up the person before him seriously. After a while, the disheveled old man mumbled something softly before closing his eyes and chasing them away. "I don't remember speaking to you. Even if I did, I've long forgotten what it was. Hurry up and leave. Don't affect my mood." The old man hesitated for a moment before sighing. "I don't know what concerns old sir has, but my sincere invitation remains unchanged. If you change your mind in the future, you can ask around for the name by Tsongwe. The doors of the nunnery that I'm building will always be open for you." The disheveled old man could not even be bothered to speak this time as he waved his hands at them. "Teacher, since old sir is unwilling to submit, we'll take our leave," a young disciple said respectfully behind him. Before Bai Tsongwe could speak, a calm voice sounded from the rain behind them. "Yes, you should have left long ago. Why stay here and touch upon sad matters?" The disheveled old man's eyelids twitched heavily as he lay on the rock in the rain. Although he did not open his eyes, the rise and fall of his chest was much greater than before. The group of people turned around and saw a black-robed man standing in the rain. His entire body seemed to be one with the heavy rain. The raindrops fell from his head, passed through his body, and fell to the ground, merging with the water that had gathered. Sensing his aura, this person did not seem to be very strong. However, he was obscured by the clouds and mist. He was clearly standing there, but seemed to be an endless distance between them. In fact, no one had even noticed when he had appeared here. Bai Tsongwe frowned slightly and cupped his hands. "Sir, why do you say so?" Although he could not see the figure beneath the black robes, this person's aura was filled with the vicissitudes of time and was worthy of this title. Of course, the most important reason was that Bai Tsongwe could not see through the person in front of him. He was like a phantom, blurry and untouchable. At first glance, he seemed as fragile as a mirror, as if he could crush it with a finger. But if one carefully sensed him, they could feel a trace of threat. A trace of a fatal threat. That's right, it was fatal. To Bai Tsongwe, this description wasn't excessive at all. This was originally just a question to open up the situation. He didn't think that the other party would actually answer, but things went beyond his expectations once more. The black-robed man lightly said, "This little fellow should have made some mistakes in the past and been imprisoned in this place. It's not that he doesn't want to leave, but that he can't leave." Shua, the disheveled old man that was lying on the rock and had treated Bai Tsongwe and his group with a nasty attitude, suddenly fell to his knees. Junior begged Senior to show mercy and rescue me. Bang, bang, as he kowtowed, water splashed out in all directions. The stone floor cracked open and dark red blood flowed down his forehead, mixing with the rainwater and quickly dyeing everything red. Filthy, filthy long hair mixed with blood and rainwater stuck to his face, making him look even more distressed. Bamboo's eyes peeked out from the cracks. He nervously stared at Chinyu, afraid that he would turn and leave. How many years had it been? This was the first time that Bamboo had encountered someone who could see through his desperate situation. If he missed this chance, he didn't know how many more years he would have to wait. Or it could be said that Bamboo wasn't sure how many more years he could last. Bang, bang, the sound of kowtowing filled the air. More and more blood flowed out. The black-robed man stood there, maintaining his initial calm and indifference, as if he didn't see what was happening in front of him. The air suddenly became heavy, as if an invisible mountain had arrived, pressing down on everyone's heads. They subconsciously lowered their heads, and even gasping for breath became difficult. Bai Tsongyue hesitated again and again. "This mister." His following words were interrupted by a glance from the black-robed man. Bai Tsongyue felt a chill run down his back, as if he had been completely seen through. Below his chest, where there were hidden dangers left behind from breaking into the divine realm, he began to feel sore and numb. Luckily, this gaze only swept over him for a moment before it fell on a bamboo. The black-robed man's old voice sounded out. "If it weren't for the fact that I had an old relationship with your ancestor and that you have already suffered enough punishment these past years, do you think I would appear here?" Bamboo was stunned. It was unknown what he was thinking, but tears began to roll down his face. He fell to the ground and said in a sorrowful voice, "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I beg Mister to save me. Save me. I never return empty-handed. Remember this well. There is a mountain outside the city where the sun, moon, yin, and yang cannot invade. After you escape, find a treasure that can enhance the soul and bring it over." Junior obeys. In the rain, the black-robed man lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. He didn't do anything else, but everyone present could hear a light cracking sound. He turned and stepped backwards. Then, his black robes melted into the curtain of rain and vanished from everyone's sight. Just like when he arrived, the difference was that even though they could only watch helplessly, they didn't know how the black-robed man had left. Bamboo, who was kneeling on the ground, respectfully kowtowed in the direction that the black robe had left. He slowly stood up from the ground. His entire person was like a long sword that had been shaken off the mottled rust on its surface, releasing a powerful aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Bang! Above Riverwater City, the curtain of rain that covered the skies instantly vanished. The thick black clouds scattered with it, revealing a bright red sun. Blazing and radiant sunlight sprinkled down, illuminating Bamboo's body. His back was straight, and loud banging sounds constantly emitted from his body. His entire person rapidly became younger, and the strength that had been sealed away for a long time was finally returning to him. Fellow Taoist Bai, regarding your previous proposal, once I complete Senior's instructions, I will go look for you. Farewell. Bamboo took a step forwards. There was a heaven-shaking rumble. The vast strength of the world gathered, condensing into a sword beneath his feet. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.